The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
G'day world, this is the Sniper of the Skies, Robbie Eagles, and you are listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy, Donovan, and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to a very special crossover episode of Keeping It Strong Style and Super J-Cast. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Joel and Damon. So we're doing a special crossover NJPW 2024 year in review. And I know you guys, we kind of had a crossover early in the year when I was out on my anniversary trip. Chris Sampson was filling in for me, but this is the real crossover now that I'm here. Joel, Damon, how you guys doing?
Yeah, Joel, you go first.
I'm a bit annoyed actually because I've just opened up the notes you sent. I thought we were here to talk about horror movies, and there's all this shit about pro wrestling.
Oh, we can talk about horror movies. We don't have to talk about pro wrestling. They said it was a special crossover episode, and we know how you guys are. We can veer off, and we don't have to stick to these notes.
For our own benefit, for everyone's benefit, the notes are chef's kiss. They're perfect. Because anything that can get me off track usually does. I have the attention span of a gnat. So yes, the notes are good. You did a great job. Everybody did a great job. Hi everyone. We're on the interwebs now, Joel. We had to turn on cameras and everything and put on pants.
I mean, technically we don't see your below, so you could have.
Trust me. Totally even if the camera was down there, you wouldn't see much anyway.
I think this is the first time we've all seen each other since what was that? New York 2019.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Yeah. Oh my god, it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, that was Rev Pro, was it? Yeah. Oh no, it was the
WrestleCon.
WrestleCon.
The March Hitchcock Memorial Show.
That's right. That was a good show.
We ran into each other here and there, a bunch of different places. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Mania weekend, which none of us even go to anymore.
I mean, I did the Philly stuff. I went to a handful of shows, but yeah, it was like, yeah. Have you guys ever gotten out to the Dome?
No, but
not
next
yet.
year.
Next year? 26 is where
Tanahashi's retirement.
Right here now, lads.
There's no way I'm not going to be there.
Got the winter coat on.
How's the weather out there, Joe? Yeah, it's good.
It's good. The people are queuing up already. They're just desperate to get tickets for January 4th. January 5th, not so much, I've heard. But, yeah.
What's happening January 5th?
I don't know. There's just some white people coming in. I'll be flying back by then.
January 5th is when people go home after they went to the Tokyo Dome. That's what happens that day.
It's the New Year's Dash, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love Dash. Actually, I do like Dash, but it hasn't been very
Dash in a few years.
Yeah, it's kind of lost that surprisiness of it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about it. I'm sure we'll talk about that nonsense show.
Well, the first thing I want to bring up before we jump into anything is just the professionalism that you guys exude, because we messaged you. We asked you if you wanted to show up many weeks in advance. You said yes. We all agreed to it. And you're here. And the fact that we were able to coordinate something like this and that we didn't have to continuously message you and ask, hey, are you keeping this date? Are you going to be showing up? Are we still on to do the show? And then to get no answers, and then to get rerouted, and then just get ghosted and never even do the show. several years in a row, multiple times. That's never happened, but glad you guys are here doing this with us.
I know who you're talking about. At least we have the dignity to and the decency to text you and tell you at the last minute, oh, I completely forgot. So we would do that. We would at least do that for you. Yes. It's rare. I mean, I don't do these anymore, right? I rarely hop on somebody else's show. But for you guys, yes, I was like, yep, we can do that. We can make that happen. So I'm excited.
This might be controversial. I think I would take all the QAnon heat for the guy that actually turns up to the
right. Those shows are
we all have our foibles,
Well, I don't want to get myself canceled. I've gone to bat for Kevin many times, so we're not talking. We're talking about Chris Charlton. So we're not. Oh, are we? I don't know if Chris would show up on any of our shows at this point.
No,
we know which show he's showing up on.
Which brings me to my next topic. We're not the
good special boys of the New Japan podcasting world anymore.
No. So, what everybody wants to know is, what was the best New Japan podcast of 2024, and why was it one of us and not, keep the Stiff Boys? Why is it that?
Oh, I mean,
it was the Ichiban Sweetcast. Ray and Curtis. I love those guys. They rule.
Me too.
Okada Shorts.
Do you think our best work was in 2024, Joel?
I think our best. I love it already. It's just a massive circle jerk. I think so. I think it's been one of the biggest years. I say if we're sort of looking at the tail end of 2023 and early 2024, one of the most tumultuous years for New Japan in recent history, and that has required a lot of hard-hitting coverage, and I think that's really sort of helped to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of the people who cover it. And there was a lot to talk about, and some of the takes have aged well, some not so well, but we're always right, so we're fine. We're sitting pretty.
We're okay. It was a weird year. I mean, just from every aspect and every angle. It was probably one of our weirder years when it comes to just being a fan of this and then doing this, not your dopey show, doing our dopey show. It's just, it was one of those weird years where, again, we're in different time zones, Joel and myself. And I wake up and I see the conversations that Joel will have. And I'll just be like, wait a minute, what the fuck? What happened?
I should caveat that this year has also ended with a lot of wrestlers angry at us. So to me, that means we're doing something right.
Yeah. I just don't want to see Joel.
I think it's important if you're covering something with integrity that you have a somewhat adversarial relationship with it. We're not here to fluff people up and be best mates with them. We're going to say it like it is, and if that means we upset a few people along the way, so be it. It wouldn't be the first time.
Hey, someone on the roster just the other day quote tweeted us and included us on and was doing a back and forth with another wrestler, both New Japan guys, and I was like, why did they quote tweet us? We have no interactions. I was like, they must be listening, I guess, but then I was like, oh shit, they're listening, and I've definitely buried this person in the past. Maybe they haven't heard those episodes. I don't know.
Yeah, but we're right there in line with you, Joel. I mean, we've both been doing this for about the same amount of time, and we're gonna come out here. We're gonna tell the truth. We're gonna be honest. If it's good, we'll praise it. If it sucks, we'll bury it. And I think there's a lot of podcasts that like to dance around that, and they want everything to be kumbaya, and they want to throw a positive spin on things 100% of the time. Which, if that's your lane, fine. But if we're going to talk about Sonata title reign, I'm going to tell you it sucked, and he sucks. If we're going to talk about, Tanahashi and his career, I'll tell you how great it is. So, we'll come out here and tell the truth.
I think that, and that's, I try to sit here and just have a conversation with Joel every week and let the chips where they fall, right? So I'm not going to say anything like wacky for wacky's sake, or at least I try not to. I'm not going to have a take that's just, just preposterous just to get people, that is the last thing I am. But like, I feel like if somebody is going to invest the time to click play on our stupid show, I'm going to give them at least honesty. Because truth be told, that's the only thing I have, right? But that's basically all that I have is an honest opinion about what I watched and where a company's going. And listen, I'll use past knowledge of sports and the profession that I am in and kind of try to connect dots in a very similar fashion to the way that I cover sports. But that's not always positive, and that's not always glowing, and that's not always. And listen, I'm not here to fucking kick people when they're down, but in the same breath, like I'm not. If you're right, Jeremy, if it sucks, it sucks, right? And if it's good, it's good, and we'll be the first person to tell you it sucks, and we'll be the first person to tell you it's great, and you might agree, and you might not, you might disagree, but that's the whole purpose of this, right? And that's the way I say it anyway.
To be fair, with our recording schedule, we'll probably be like the third or fourth people to tell you something sucks, but we will say it eventually.
Yeah, and with us being live, we do have some comments jumping in the chat here. So Angel of Pac says, I still think Sonata had a better reign than Naito.
Oh, that's a hot take and maybe not wrong either.
Well, listen.
I'm not allowed to ask Damon questions about Sonata anymore.
Once again,
we've closed the door on Sonata discourse.
We have. I had a shower thought of Sonata.
Nice.
As sexy as that sounds. It was like, again, is there a guy that has gotten more opportunity and more chances? Like, I can't think of another guy on that roster that's been given more coats of paint and let's try to make this work. And just, it's amazing to me. It's amazing how much time and effort.
Imagine if Hiroshi Hase had gotten the opportunities that Sonata got when he was with New Japan.
And to a certain time frame in a certain manner, like he was probably one of the more trusted hands in that company. But yeah, it's just like, my God. But listen, if you like the dude, great. I mean, I'm glad that people can turn on a Sonata match and get some pleasure and enjoyment. Right? That's great. I ain't that guy. That's for fucking sure. Right, man.
Well, speaking of, the world title and title reign, that's kind of the first segment I want to kind of talk about in 2024 is the World Heavyweight Championship scene. And, we started the year, we had Naito and Sonata main eventing in the Dome, Naito winning the title. Of course, then we would have Jon Moxley eventually winning the title at Windy City Riot for Naito to then get the title back, and then eventually it's dropped to Zack, and that's kind of been the main scene. They've all had defenses. So throwing it to you guys first, what are your thoughts about the title scene this year?
I think one thing that we seem to be lacking in this era is that standout passing of the torch moment. If you sort of cast your mind back to things like the Rainmaker Shock, or even after that, like Wrestle Kingdom 10, we've not had that yet, where we've had one of the standout new generation getting that moment where he's beaten the previous top guy, the top ace in the company, and where you can hang your hat and be like, oh, okay, right, this is the new guy. So we've had Naito hold of the belt, and then he's given it to Moxley, which is kind of a lateral move. And I can see the intention there to try and do some numbers in the West, and also have Moxley working with some of those younger guys to give them the experience of working sort of top end programs like that. And whilst it didn't necessarily go the way we all hoped it would, I could at least see what the plan was there before getting it back to Naito. And then Naito, again, you might have thought, okay, is he going to be the one who drops it to Shota or Tsuji? And those opportunities were there, but they've gone with Zack, which I think is the right move. But now I'm just looking ahead to the future and thinking, okay, so what is going to be the moment? Because they're going to have to do it at some point. At some point, one of these new guys has got to win the big one. And it'll be interesting if it is Zack who gets to do that pass at the torch moment, whether it is January 4th or not, and not someone like Naito who has been holding down the fort for the last 3-4 years and has been ridden into the ground. But I just think it's interesting looking at sort of the intentionality behind what they do with the big belt at the moment.
Could be Ricochet.
Could be. Yeah, I think this is a weird year, right? In the sense of, while there was a lot of instability, the actual title itself was pretty stable throughout the year. And the people that held it were people that you could trust and rely on. And there really wasn't that, and maybe we see that in a handful of days, but we don't really have that super duper elevation, right? That I guess all of us are kind of waiting for the shoe to finally drop. And we know it's coming sooner than later. But I think I'm kind of glad that they haven't as of yet. I'm kind of glad this is New Japan. And again, they go for the long term and the slow burn. And it's as much as we were standing on a mountaintop in 2021 and 22 and 23, like, come on, let's get these guys going. And, we got to build some stars. People are going to be sticking around, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm kind of glad that there is that slow burn. I'm kind of glad that there was at the very least a sense of stability at the top. And I think that's paramount.
Yeah, I think the booking itself was certainly stable. They're sticking to the plan to the best of their abilities here. But there's also an unevenness in terms of fan interaction, quality. Some of the title defenses did big business. Some of them had really great, quality of matches, but there just didn't seem to be that sustained excitement and investment from the fans and the audience with what they were doing throughout this year. And it really just comes down to, I don't know, it reminds me in some ways, it's not a 1-for-1, but I remember in like 03, 04, they're trying out different champions, who's going to be the guy. And they would change the title. And when they changed the title, there was always that excitement. But then the follow through afterwards was where things were lacking until probably until we got to like Tanahashi in 05, really is where things started to kind of settle down a little bit more. And as good as like Takayama and Fujita and all these different guys, Nakamura were as champions, they just didn't have the juice to carry it through all year. And, Naito, he's had some incredible title runs, but this just wasn't his year to like have that signature run the way they wanted him to. Mox was kind of the same thing. Sonata came in and, kind of just limped into the Tokyo Dome. So, and with Zach, we're at a point where I think it's great that Zach has the title, but, there's definitely some things to kind of criticize. There are some indictments on the title run, even though some of the matches have been fantastic. So I am interested to see where we go from here. If there is going to be a more stabilizing force in terms of the booking, because like you said, Damon, they book for the long haul. And I'm wondering, like, do they have a definitive plan to try and turn things around? Are we going to go with one of these Lions, one of these guys that return from excursion? Like, are we going to pass the torch, or are we going to play some hot potato for the next couple of years? Like, which way is it going? Are we going with the Tsuji or Inoue or Umino or not? Or are we just going to have to try them all out and see, if a piece of spaghetti sticks to the wall,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly what we're looking at, right? I don't, as much as it feels like we have one guy that's being force fed down our throat, that might not be the answer. And, if fan interest and ticket sales and all those prime indicators are, what we're hanging our hat on, it does feel like they're going to, I wouldn't say hot potato, but I don't think that they know 100% certain. I think they have it written down on a piece of paper, but I don't think anybody in their heart of hearts is saying, this is the guy that's going to carry us for the next 5, 7, 10 years. And I think that's twofold. One, we're talking about a time where, arguably it's the greatest pro wrestling era, in our lives. Right. And if it's not, it's in the conversation to be. And we're talking about, 2 generational talents fighting over a world title, at its peak. And I don't know if any one of those 4 would equal a Tanahashi or an Okada, just the package that you have. So it's a hard ask, right? And I don't know if, any of those guys have been challenged, and this is going to be a big hill for for Shota to climb. But I don't think that their heart is set on any one particular person right now. And I think that in the next, while this might be a transition year, I think we'll have more experimentation with people at the top to see which piece of spaghetti sticks.
Yeah, and like you were saying, I think this was definitely been a very, it's been a weird year, but also not a weird year. Because like you mentioned, there has been stability with the title. We've had Naito champion twice this year, the Jon Moxley title reign, and they seemed like they had to do what was best for business. Naito, he's a top drawing star. I know he's on his last strings on knees. He's on his last set of eye surgeries. He's kind of, pulling it together. Obviously, he's not peak, 2016, 2017 Naito, but at the end of the day, they had to do what was best for business and what was going to draw, getting him in that Tokyo Dome main event and then kind of getting him as a champion for the first quarter of the year. And then the Jon Moxley experiment was interesting. I feel like it got hampered by the AEW booking of things, and then also just trying to get him over in Japan more, and then who the challengers that were lined up for him. Because I feel like had Jon Moxley been IWGP champion, say 2019, I feel like that would have been a great year for him to have a reign, because he would have had the Okadas, a healthier Tanahashi, a healthier Naito. He would have had better guys to defend the title against. And this year, the Umino match at Resurgence, I thought that was great. But, he did have to go against Narita and Evil and kind of full House of Torture mode. And I don't really feel like he was fully set up to have a great reign due to the bookings on the challengers. And then, you go Forbidden Door and he just drops it back to Naito, and not the best match either. So I know a lot of fans were against Moxley having a title, but I do feel like there were a lot of factors that were running against him with that reign. Now, you had Naito going in G1 as champion and having a fine G1. And then also we get to the moment where, Zach wins G1. He's shaking things up, doing the October challenge and getting the win, which is a very exciting win. And I think that having Zach as champion has been great. I know a lot of people have been critical about, some of the attendance numbers with him as champion and how some of these tours are doing, but I don't know if you can fully blame that on him. But I think it's good to have Zach as champ. I kind of wish it would have been sooner, though. It kind of feels like Zach being champion should have been a bigger moment. And in a little way, it kind of feels forced. What do you guys think?
I think, yeah, so there's the elephant in the room, isn't it? That he has only become champion after Okada and Ospreay have left. And it would have meant more of a show of faith if they'd crowned him with those top guys still there. So that's definitely a factor. And also, to your point on Moxley, there are all those mitigating circumstances, but I think you can tell the guy was at least clearly miserable at that point. He was not enjoying what he was doing. And of course, that's going to affect your work. I'm not making excuses for the guy, but he looked like he was not having a good time. And he looked like he'd fallen out of love with pro wrestling at that point. So I think, had he been working for a home promotion that was a bit less skittish, then maybe he would have been able to contribute more to the Naito matches and the Ren match and the Shota match. But as it was, I think it was an experiment that was worth doing, but in the end has kind of left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
I didn't hate it. I will say this, that Chicago gate was probably one of their biggest houses that they drew. And that was right on the back of that match. Yeah. And I think Joel hit a good point. And again, I don't know where he was mentally when it came to being the guy to carry a promotion, or even if the ask was, if it was just a placeholder and just, hang on to this thing and you pop the house and, we're going to, just carry this fucking thing around with you for a little bit. And, we're going to take it off you shortly. I didn't hate it. And I understand why it was done. And I understand, the fact that they made, they paid some bills with that gate. That said, look, I was super pumped for Zach. I was all in on the title win. I think he's been an outstanding champ. Again, I get the fact that, and I try not to take individual gates as gospel, right? Like, a million things. Weather could be bad. Traffic was bad. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is. But it's the consistency and the pattern of that. It's lower than last year. Oh, that same show, lower than last year. That was. I don't know if I could put that 100. Let's put it this way. I think Zach has done everything in his power to be a solid champion. Whether that's he drops it at the Dome, the guy, has done everything that he could, whether it's in ring, being an MVP, being a Wrestler of the Year contender, learning the language, and carrying himself as a champion. I don't think he's a terrible transition champion, but I think that people fully understand that he's a transitional champion. And I think that
some of those next gen guys as well, like Fujita and Oiwa, bringing them into TMDK, and how much of that you take as a kayfabe thing. But I think you can clearly see taking them under his wing some years ago, even when they were still young lions.
Yeah, and he has no problem giving back. He has no, again, if we're talking about MVPs and people who have stepped up, even bigger than what he has been in the past, you have to tip your cap to him. But yes, overall, at the end of the day, it's okay. Is the transition champion of Zach, was that worth the squeeze? And again, for the couple of months, I think so. And we'll see January 4th.
Yeah. Just to close it out, I think that there are a lot of mitigating circumstances when it comes to things like this. And when you compare the last two major foreigner champions in terms of when we had crowds, you'd be looking at Jay White and what's wrong with me? And Kenny Omega, and the two of them.
And Will.
Yeah, but Will was during the pandemic and just didn't have the same kind of metrics to be judged by. I mean, I guess there were some clap crowds, but I just kind of throw his out a little bit because, they were half-filled arenas some of the time and things like that. But with those two guys, and you know what, you could even throw Will into this. They were all built from a booking perspective for a long time before they really got there, and they were pushed to that level. Zach has always been pushed as like a player, but you would never call him a top 5 or top 6 guy in terms of like the booking rotation. They clearly didn't have the intention to get him to this level and then had their hand forced. I think he did everything in his power to maximize every potential opportunity they've ever given him, and he's always knocked it out of the park. But I do think some of this is a short-sightedness when it comes to the booking and them not seeing the value in him and then having to go with him in a time of desperation. And they didn't really, cue him up to be successful in the position the way they should have if they were booking him the way they say they did with Kenny Omega for the 2 years before he actually won the title.
Yeah. And Josh, even if they decided to say, okay, let's make that move post New Japan Cup win, right? Where he's, guys are losing left and right. He's tapping everybody out. Like that's building, and you're right. Maybe their hands were forced and they had to act quick, and a lot of, scribbled out pages on a notebook, right? Just trying to get from point A to point B. And that may very well be the case. Yeah.
And that calls into question the way that they do their business, the way that they sign talent, and how they view the full wrestling landscape in an AEW, WWE world, And I know not everything is in their control, especially with the way that the economy has been, but I think they've got to reevaluate all of it, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
And, we did have a lot of the young guys in the title scene this year. We had, Narita, Tsuji, guys like that, Narita challenging for a title, which kind of shifts our next topic, is kind of talking about the rise of this new generation. So we've seen these guys now in tournaments, G1, New Japan Cups, challenging for titles. How do you guys feel about the booking of like the Reiwa, Three Musketeers, and guys like Kosei Fujita, Yuya Uemura, Ryo Oiwa?
Kedro, you can take the first one.
I think Tsuji seems to be the guy who's been given the most opportunity. Like if I'm trying to say which one has been nurtured and given all the choice spots to develop him as a top talent, then it would be him. Because we're looking at things like him coming back and challenging at Dominion, him winning the New Japan Cup and then challenging at Sakura Genesis, him making it all the way to the G1 final. I mean, that to me is a clear signpost that this is the guy that they're behind. Even though he's not necessarily had that definitive win where he's won the world title, the fact that they're putting him in all these huge spots, to me, shows their confidence in him, that they're the guy that they're trying to give the experience in those spots and get the crowd used to seeing in those big spots. And if I had to pick one guy who's eventually going to win the world title first out of the whole crop, I think it's probably going to be him. I think the way we're sort of trending at the moment, probably David Finlay will be winning the world title at some point next year, and then I could see Tsuji being the guy that takes it off him, because that seems to be the way New Japan like to do things, with having these sort of long-term feuds that run over the course of several years. Shota does feel like a pivot, but I think one of the nice things about not necessarily having a standout guy, despite what I've just said, is that there is the fluidity to it, so that if one guy does grab the ball by the horns, then they can pivot and go with that guy instead. So I don't think Shota is the guy that they have at the top of their mind, but if he delivers on January 4th, then they might think, actually, maybe let's go with him instead. I think they're the two standout guys at the moment. I don't think Ren is anywhere near that conversation. Yuya, it's hard to tell. I don't think he was being built up as a main event player anytime soon, and obviously he got that unfortunate injury. And Oira, I think, is the guy they're going to be taking their time with. But if I had to pick one guy who's head of the class at the moment, it would be Tsuji.
Yeah. I like the fact that throughout the year, and even throughout the past 4 years, 3 years maybe even, you have these guys put in different situations as almost stress tests, right? Just putting them in bright spotlight, big time, top of the show matches, and then pulling them back, right? And then kind of re-releasing them into the wild, right? And we've seen that in a lot of different ways with a lot of different guys, which kind of just re-emphasizes the fact that I don't know if they know, right? And I think that they're in constant, okay, let's put him in this situation. Okay, let's put him in this feud. Let's see if he can work this style. And a lot of these guys, their excursions might have been cut short, or they may not have gotten that true excursion experience, or, it might be just a case of you got to learn sometime, right? We're going to throw you into the deep end of the pool and let's see what you can do. To me, this is a deep end of the pool moment for Shota. Like that big building behind you, Joel, like that's their biggest show of the year. And he's coming out last, right? That one right there. To me, again, that doesn't necessarily mean that he walks out with a title. That doesn't necessarily mean that he is the guy for the future. But let's be honest, he's the first guy to be in that situation. And guess what? Undercard, semi-main event, maybe not the, on medium.com/New Japan Pro Wrestling, you might see a different match order, but there's a big time match with just about every one of those guys at certain levels and certain pockets. It's a big test. We knew this day was coming, but now it's like, I think that's what I'm most excited of. This is like a true, the light and the spotlight is as bright and as intense as it's going to get for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Let's see what you can do, kids.
Yeah, I think you both bring up some really great points there. And there has been that sort of stop-start, push a guy, see how they're doing with the stress test, like you mentioned, Damon, and then kind of pulling them back. One of my concerns has been when somebody from a fan perspective, because I don't even know what management is always looking for. It might be something totally different than what we as fans are looking at. But someone will seem to fail a test, and then they're put into a prominent position. Or other times, someone will seem to have knocked it out of the park, and then they're slow rolled and they're kind of drawn back again. And you're like, when are they gonna figure out which way they're going. I think what they're doing right now, we've gotten to this point. This is a transitionary Tokyo Dome season. It's very different in a lot of ways than what we've seen over the past decade. And like you guys mentioned, they're placing a lot of these young, up and coming, dojo talents into these new positions to see how they deliver in the Tokyo Dome. And it's going to be a litmus test as to whether or not the way that they book these guys and the criticisms from, the pundits and the fans are valid or not. Because if they have taken their time the way they have and stuck to their game plan and it doesn't pay off, then people who are critical of them, the Dave Meltzers and the VOW guys and stuff who have said like, hey, they need to go with somebody right now. We don't have time to waste. Those people are going to be wrong, because if what they're doing works in the long run for their business and for their popularity, then, there's no reason to change something that's not broken. But if they try this out, and we've already given like 2, 3, 4 years to some of these guys, and we're not there yet, then I do think they kind of need to go back to the drawing board and reimagine. I don't mean like overhaul everything, because at the end of the day, in my heart, I am still like a New Japan traditionalist. I don't want them to just completely like wipe away, what has been part of their tradition for 50 years. But they do need to change with the times, I think, sometimes, and they need to take a look at the landscape that they're in and realize like, hey, a shot of excitement might not be a bad thing here. And the fans have been desperately asking for it for a long time. And we need that guy, whoever that is, or guys, girls, whatever, somebody to attach ourselves to. And so far, they haven't given the fans, in my opinion, a real reason to totally invest in anybody in particular. And we're at that point. We're literally at a point where we are going to find out whether we can or can't moving forward. This is going to be a huge test.
If you're looking for 2017 and 2018 and 2019, to me, that's a really tough ask. That's a tough ask. You go up and down that lineup and that roster, that was maybe the greatest pro wrestling lineup and roster, from Kota Ibushi and Hiroki Goto and AJ, and transitioning to Kenny, and just Bullet Club taking off. And like, it was just the right time for so many things. And you had two of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time fighting over your big boy belt. Like, that's a dream scenario, right? You can't, those things come along once in a lifetime, it feels like. Or, at least a couple of generations. How long did it take for New Japan to kind of get back on its feet after Hashimoto and Chono and Muda and the foreign talent that was brought in, Vader and Bigelow, and there's so much right time and right people and people being available. Look, I don't think there's anything odd or strange to say about this, but while it's a revenue producing partnership, the worst thing that happened to New Japan was AEW. It's the worst thing that happened to them. Just the amount of pure talent, and they don't have that pure talent right now. They have guys that can go. They have veterans that can handhold and get you from point A to point B. There's just a ton of unknowns. And when they're put in those situations, you have moments where you're like, yes, these are our guys. That's the guy we're going with. Let's go. Let's saddle up and fucking take off. And then 2 months later, just like you were saying, it's like, where was that? Where's that energy? Where'd that go? Right. This guy's farting around in 6-man tags. It's like, I get that frustration. I understand that. The problem is that if people are hanging their hat on 2019, 2018 New Japan, man, you're going to be disappointed, because that's a once in a lifetime gig.
Yeah, New Japan had an embarrassment of riches in those years, and we were saying for years, all right, this is great, but who's next? Who are they going to start building up? And, the roster was loaded. You had your Okadas, Tanahashis, Naitos, Goto, Ishii, all in their primes. And it's like, yeah, this is great, but yeah, who's the next star? And they really kind of slow rolled. You know how New Japan goes sometimes. They really kind of slow rolled some of that. But we are seeing a lot of these next-gen guys in big spots at Wrestle Kingdom. They've been in big spots throughout the year. But like Josh was saying, I do think some of the booking is hit or miss on these guys. You look at Shota Umino, who's going into Wrestle Kingdom as the challenger, and I feel like the booking did him no favors at all this year. If this was the plan from day one, hey, we're going to put in a young guy, we're going to put Umino in there, fine. I like Shota Umino. We've had some listeners say, oh, man, you guys are really bashing this guy, but I like him. I think he's great, but I think there's just been the booking combined with some of the things that he's doing also, I think that's really hurt him this year. And, if he's going to be the guy, like, why didn't he win G1? Why didn't he at least get to the finals, semifinals? Why wasn't he in New Japan Cup finals? Like, he was not in a prominent position most of the year. Yeah, he had a title match against Mox, but besides that, I feel like he was just kind of stuck in the House of Torture loop all year, feuding with Narita and Evil, and then kind of having a lackluster G1 from a booking and in-ring standpoint. I don't really think he went out there and had this, blowout G1 where I'm like, man, yeah, I want to see Umino be the guy in the Tokyo Dome. And
I think we all know why.
And then to just kind of almost slide his way into this title match. Like, I felt that there was no build or investment to get him here. And I feel like in the past, like, look at the Ospreay Umino rivalry. Like, I wanted to see Umino beat Ospreay. They had a series of matches, and every time Umino got closer and closer. And that last match they had before Will left for the U.S. title, like, that was an incredible matchup. Umino looked like an ace, looked like a star. I'm like, man, I want to see Umino beat Ospreay so bad. I want to see him get that moment. And I feel that they've lost that fire, that they've lost that momentum. And a part of that, I think, is the booking. Part of that, like, his look. And I've mentioned it for weeks now on the show. Like, you look at all the graphics of him. They're using him with the long hair and the old look, his old gear. But he has like this short hair now. He has this new gear. He just doesn't look like a star.
Jeremy, they don't have a website. They're not taking any new. I don't think they own a camera to be able to do that.
I don't know. So some of the new guys have updated renders.
They did a selfie.
Use this one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. When you said that thing about how long did it take them to recover after Hashimoto and Shoto and them, I was like, don't say that. My stomach just dropped. Like,
yeah. I mean, and there were other circumstances, that helped, the rise and the fall. But yeah, it's we were so fortunate to be around this company and being fans and talking about it and connecting with other people that talk about it. And then that snowballs into, now you're talking to these guys and you're talking to people in the company and you're kind of learning a little bit more and more each and every day. We couldn't have done this at a better time. You know what I mean? All four of us, we could not have gotten in at a better time. The problem is that if you're a fan and that's your bar, boy, that's a tough bar. It's a tough bar.
Yeah. And
I'll just throw in a few things, sort of whispers I heard. And if you sort of analyze the booking through the lens of those rumors, then maybe you can kind of sort of piece together a bit more logic out of it. So the first being that the Tanahashi retirement, apparently, and again, take this with a pinch of salt because this is unconfirmed rumors, but apparently the Tanahashi retirement was supposed to be January 5th next year, hence the double dome thing. But then after Okada left, then Tanahashi decided, or the company decided, that he had to stick around as an active wrestler for another year. Wow. So the January 5th thing ended up being a pivot to the Wrestle Dynasty thing. And I also heard some whispers that the original plan for January 4th main event was Zack versus Moxley. So, and again, I'm not saying that those are gospel or that even I necessarily believe them, but if you just sort of explore that as a thought exercise, then some of the decisions start to make a bit more sense in terms of the direction for Shota Umino at the start of the year, and then sort of the hard pivot as to where he is now. And obviously, I mean, I think the plan was always to do Naito versus Hiromu, hence trying to get the belt off of Naito and having Zack calling a shot early. But it's just something to throw out there to think about in terms of...
What's your guys' your gimmick behind the Discord?
Pastrami?
The deli.
Yeah.
The deli.
Yeah, we're getting deli shit and we didn't even pay for it.
Hey, listen, we gotta boost up that Patreon. You know, we gotta give people little tastes, and then
when you say that two white guys were gonna fight in the dome, my knee-jerk reaction is they would never do that. But they're already doing so many things right now that I never thought they'd do, that I'm just like, fuck, they might have done that. Who knows? Like,
yeah, I mean, as much as we sit here and say, well, this is New Japan and this is what they do, and this is, you know, the patterns that they do, in the same breath, I mean, you look at that post Wrestle Kingdom show, you know, that's a crazy TNA-esque, you know, New Japan show. You know, there's just a lot of stuff, like a lot of dream matches that no one asked for. It's really amazing.
They're the kind of matches where if they were happening in PWG, I'd be like, fuck yeah.
Right. I mean, as a wrestling show in a bubble on paper, I mean, there's some stud matches there, right? But in the context of like New Japan and all, it's like, what? Like, is this like Fantastica fucking Mania we're doing? What are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, very some interesting stuff coming up there.
Very honor rising.
Yes. But you know, Joel, you mentioned Yota Tsuji earlier, and yeah, I do feel like he's one of the guys that they're kind of hitting it with for the most part. You know, he gets a New Japan Cup win, whether that was a plan or not. He gets a G1 final, and now he's going to be up for the global title. And I feel like, yeah, things are going really well for him. I think he's a guy that could potentially, be a world champion next year if things go the way for him. I feel like Kosei Fujita is a guy that they're kind of getting it right with. Gets his first tournament win this year with Eagles. He's going to the Dome in that junior four-way match. Oiwa's being slotted in well in TMDK. I think there's more to come with him as well. And so, again, I think they're kind of finding the footing with a lot of these guys really well.
Yeah, I'm with Joel. I don't know. They're in a weird spot. They have a lot of talent that they have to produce, and yet they have these little pockets of guys that they bring in occasionally that maybe aren't necessarily full-time New Japan guys that you're like, oh, okay, that's an interesting little twist. And, you know, your mileage may vary with like a guy like Jake Lee or, whomever. Like, I like the fact that they have these guys that they can lean on a little bit, that have a little bit more experience to get you through those mid-card moments that, quite honestly, for years have been pretty stellar when you had guys like Shibata and Ishii, and you weren't going to get popcorn in the middle of the show. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
I disagree. I think we're in a great era. I like Matt Riddle. I like Nick Nemeth.
Yeah, big fan of that show. Yeah.
Big fan of Ali.
Yeah, Mustafa Ali. Yes, absolutely. Oh,
Nick Nemeth.
Love it. Keep them coming.
I do think we should, like, in all seriousness, it is exciting the fact that they have got this group of young Japanese heavyweights coming up, because I've been saying on our podcast for years, Damon, that has been a massive gap in their roster. Like, even when we were having sort of the glory years of 2018, 2019, there wasn't that sort of next up and coming group of Japanese heavyweights that you think like, yeah, they're going to be carrying the company in the future. Because even then you're sort of looking at like Sanada and Evil, and even then you could see like they're probably not going to be the guys. And I've also talked about before that kind of lost generation of young lions, looking at guys like Katsuya Kitamura, Kanemitsu, Honjo, and Yagi, guys like that. So they lost like a big group of guys, and I think they for a long time were sort of playing catch up with that, but now they've kind of restocked the deck when we're looking at Shota and Tsuji and Ren and Oiwa and Fujita and Yu Uemura. So I think that's worth celebrating. I think they've done a really good job in at least having that talent pool there. So they might not all make it as top stars, but at least they can kick the tires and see how they get on with them.
Where do you put the booking? Where do you put the like, if we're going to post blame for the struggles that this company might have in getting those young guys over, is that the talent or is that the booking?
I think I think it's a combination of the two, but I will say this, right? We'd been on this show for a long time being like, hey, they've got this long list of guys that are off an excursion. When are they going to bring them back, and how are they going to integrate them? Because it feels like they're going to just do it all at the same time. And they didn't happen all at the same time, but it was like within the course of a year, everybody pretty much came back, and they didn't seem to have the firm game plan in place for how they wanted to use and integrate all those people. I think some of that foresight, that pre-planning was kind of missed there, whatever that might be. And then, I mean, not for nothing, you guys fucking knew Okada was leaving a long time ago. The fact that they didn't have stuff in the pipeline preparing for the possibilities of all of these departures screams to me that is somebody somewhere, and you guys are more connected than us. Like, you probably know who's fucking at fault when it comes to the committee. I don't know who to lay blame at. I guess you kind of ultimately have to sort of throw it on Gato, since, you know, the buck kind of ends with him. And, you know, there were all of those rumors about the disconnect between the booking committee and new management last year. But, you know, there something was not cohesive there for them to have fully prepared for the right way to integrate everybody and prepare for the loss of all these talents.
Josh, I'll tell you the honest to God truth. And and they truly didn't believe he was leaving until the very end.
Well,
they really did.
When we heard it, I didn't believe.
Trust me. I mean, you know, we talk about doing our shows, and, you know, and how weird this year was. Like, just the amount of people reaching out to us about it, and it crossed like all methods of communication, in the sense of, we had people that you would think, well, why are they asking us? Right? That are like, I had no idea. Like, what do you know? And we have people that will tell us what they know, and everything in between. And it, like, up until the end, it felt like they truly believed he was not leaving. And I don't know if there was a last minute push to sign him, or to take that off the table, but his mind was made up early.
Yeah.
And again, when he hired Barry Bloom, I mean, if that wasn't just a prime indicator, like you don't hire him because you want Japanese representation for your new contract with New Japan. You know, like, that's not the guy you're hiring. And even then there were, that's not unconfirmed, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, some of it is wrestling PR, you know, let's not tell any of the people who are not behind the doors and the curtain anything going on, because we're going to run this company like it's 1976. But it was amazing to us how just mind-boggling it was of they're actually there with their pants down, you know, and that, to me, that's maybe the most kind of cold water splash on your face moment for me that year. That was like, because you think, well, it's New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that lion mark means something, and this is a real company because they run that building right there, so they got to be legit. And just the amount of, what are they doing? How are they not planned? How do they not have a plan B? How are they like, that encapsulated everything to me of what goes on behind the scenes at New Japan Pro Wrestling. Just like a hazy plan in the distance, but no one really knows 100%, and everyone's kind of left in the dark.
It was that moment that sort of seared in my memory. I think it was one of the New Beginning of Sapporo matches where at the end of it, Okada's in the middle of the ring with all his Chaos buddies, and he's just spinning around his circles going, yay! And that was the moment, I think, where the penny drops. And exactly as you said, Damon, that was the same phrase in my mind. New Japan with their pants pulled down. And they just, the whole company looked fucking ridiculous then, with this guy making a mockery of the whole situation as he was walking out the door. And I think that's what the company needed. They needed a kick up the arse to be like, no, this is actually happening. You look like mugs now. Pull your finger out, because otherwise this is going to get much, much worse.
Yeah, Josh, looks like your mic's disconnected. But yeah, that was definitely one of the craziest moments of the beginning of the year, where, yeah, you have Okada is leaving, you have Will Ospreay leaving, you have all these top guys leaving. Yeah, they're sitting there with no plan at all. And you're just like, this can't be real. Like, what are you guys doing? You've always been able to reload. Like, AJ Styles left and Nakamura left and all these guys left, and they, those years they've been able to kind of reload and push people up. And then, yeah, come, this time of the year where
they thought it was Riddle and Nick Nemeth. Right? They were doing it at the same time. That was them restarting, like, oh, we got this, guys, don't worry.
Yep. Got it under control.
Yeah. And speaking of foreigners, when we look back to like 2018 and 2019, not only were they not really pushing, that next set of Japanese heavyweights, they also had a problem where they were relying on foreigners outside of their company instead of relying on the LA Dojo. When you look back at the progress of the LA Dojo to what it's become now, like those Carl Fredericks, Connors, Coughlin, Gabe Kidd, all those guys that grinded in the LA Dojo, and they had the contracts on their roster, and instead of pushing these guys and creating your own foreign stars, they have to grab, the shiny toy. Let me get my new shiny former WWE, my new shiny AEW guy, and plug them in. And of course, obviously, I'm not saying don't get those guys. Those guys are going to be good for attracting Western eyes. They're going to be good for when you run US shows. But why not elevate and really create your own foreign stars? And also now we have the Bullet Club War Dogs, and those guys are doing good. Gabe Kidd is building up fire. He's going to face Kenny Omega. But I feel like they could have done more with those LA Dojo guys and the LA Dojo in general, and really kind of create that US pipeline to build your own foreign stars.
You don't like the Academy showcases?
They're in a tricky position, because like anytime one of their foreign stars gets over, then they're going to get signed up by one of the other companies. So they're in this position where they've got to elevate foreign stars, but not too much. Like, they can't be too good and too appealing to a casual Western audience, otherwise they're going to get signed elsewhere. So like Zack Sabre Jr. and David Finlay, that's like the sweet spot at the moment, and Gabe Kidd kind of towing that line as well. But we can't have anyone that's too much of a star.
Yeah, it is a weird, like, one of the more disappointing aspects of, well, let's pivot. One of the better things that have happened during pandemic New Japan Pro Wrestling was Strong, right? And the LA Dojo, and what they were able to accomplish there, having that show in an empty warehouse. And yet there was some appeal, and you did see guys that you were like, okay, that he could make the roster. Maybe not this person, but maybe with a little bit more seasoning. And we have a nice pipeline to the main roster. It never really developed that way. It never really felt like, maybe there was a time when you were like, okay, Lawler or, I don't know whom else, but like on that roster, you could maybe hand select 3-4 full-time guys going over there. And it never really happened. Yes, there was a World Tag League here and there. Yes, there was an occasional match here and there. But it never really developed into something where you thought like this would be a great feeder system. And the goal of Strong is to make the main roster, where they try to make it a pseudo promotion that was comparable to that of Ring of Honor or a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or something that had some staying power in the United States that they felt confident that they could run. I gotta be honest with you. I'm not at the point where I actively despise these U.S. shows, but I'm at the point where it's like, if I never watched another U.S. show, I don't feel like I would miss much. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I would miss all that much. It's not like I'm missing guys that are going to eventually be on the roster. That we know that's not going to happen, right? And there are guys that keep winning those opening matches, But there's a perfect example, right? So the gimmick there is we're going to have this match where they're continuously the opening match of a show, right, in front of 1,000 people. Like, I would be like, I'm going to lose because I don't want to be on these shows and get paid $25. I'm good. I'm going to go somewhere else, spend a weekend with the family. But like if they said, okay, at a certain point or maybe a certain big show in the US, the end result is, hey, you're earning a spot wherever. You know what I mean? If it's G1, fine. If it's New Japan Cup, fine. Whatever it is, but like that reward of, okay, I'm the top guy in Strong. I'm the top young lady in Strong. That's where I'm going next. And that never really developed. And then we became this pseudo New Japan Pro Wrestling show that really isn't a New Japan Pro Wrestling show. I see the line mark and I hear them counting to 20 in Japanese. But aside from that, I don't feel like I'm at a New Japan Pro Wrestling show.
Well, I disagree with you guys.
The ecosystem has changed, Damon. When Strong did get little glimpses of those, proper blue chip prospects, and I remember talking to you with these Strong tapings. They're probably empty arena, seeing guys like Buddy Matthews. I can't remember what his name is now, but him coming through. Swerve Strickland. He worked a couple of Strong, and I remember saying like, wow, there's some proper talent. There's real upside here. But
Brody King.
Yeah, another one, really good example. So anyone who's actually really, really talented is going to get snapped up, and then the guys we get left with are guys that New Japan don't see the value in paying for them to go to Japan. They like West Coast Wrecking Crew. They ain't going to pay for no flights or hotels for them to actually work a tour in Japan. And that's where the line gets drawn.
Yeah, they won that title match this past weekend, and Rocky comes out and he's like, these guys been busting their asses for 4 years. I'm like, that's right, Rocky. Now somebody pay for them to fucking go to Japan so we can watch them in the country.
Right. I mean, again, you mean to tell me a team like that couldn't do World Tag League? Again, and I'm saying that as if their calendars are completely open. Like they don't have a shoot job or something like that, right? Where I can't go to Japan for a month, right? I don't know. But like, again, to have that synergy, I don't feel like there is any synergy. Yes, they run angles. Yes, they run shows that complement. Like, again, we saw that in the multi-man junior match this past weekend. Like they do have those moments, but once again, it's like, I don't know. It could have been so much more and so much better, and they totally missed the mark and missed the ball, and they don't know what they want to be. And that's a big problem.
I for one really like the LA Academy showcases, and I love Tamashi. So I'm going to disagree with all you. Here's one thing I do want to bring up. All right, and this is one beef I have, and I've never said anything negative about your guys' show, but there's one thing I'm going to say.
Oh, come on.
Joel always gets all the credit for covering Strong as hard as he did, and all credit to you guys because I've been listening, because he does and did cover Strong, but we too covered Strong just as hard during that fucking pandemic.
I'll tell you right now, I watched maybe 4 shows.
We watched those empty arena shows.
That's him.
We watched El Fuego.
Yeah, I feel like the brands kind of exist in 2 different universes, even though you do have some of the guys coming over. And I do think that New Japan Strong, that brand now, is a detriment to New Japan in America. Because I feel like the draw of New Japan coming to America was that red and yellow line mark. It was rare. What? New Japan Pro Wrestling is coming to America? They rarely do this. They're bringing all the stars. It's going to be a big show. We're getting an IWGP title match. We're getting a Intercontinental title match. Like they're bringing all these guys. It's going to be treated as something special, something big. And I feel like now they've kind of bastardized New Japan in America. And also, we've had the whole global expansion. We saw the map. They were trying to do all these kind of like little territory things and tour. Yeah, they had the mid on the map and trying to do the whole U.S. thing. And I feel like now New Japan Strong really hurts that, because you see that blue New Japan Strong logo. You know you're not getting really New Japan. Like, sure, they might throw you an LIJ multi-man. They might give you
Kojima.
Yeah, my man Kojima. They might give you a TNBK tag match or whatever, but you're not. I mean, exception for maybe like Battle in the Valley last year, you're not really getting all the top stars in big spots, in big moments. I mean, the last show before this one, we had, Gabe Kidd and Vegeta in the main event, which I love those guys, but for like a big show in the U.S., like, is that what you're main eventing? And then, last night, we had Mercedes and Hazuki, which was an excellent matchup. But again, like, is that New Japan? Like, is a New Japan fan going to be attracted to Mercedes versus Suzuki, or are you trying to get like the AEW Joshi fan, in which I guess you should all try to get all fans, but like for a traditional like New Japan Pro Wrestling show, I don't think they're really doing a great job of hitting that market in the US anymore. And I feel like that strong brand just kind of bastardizes everything. And like, it should just be called New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, you don't need the strong anymore. We don't need strong titles and tag titles and women's titles and all this stuff.
And
like
women.
And Jeremy, everything you said hits the nail right on the head. Plus, ticket prices are like $200.
Look, at least they didn't do a plunder match on this show, so
Yeah,
we're heading in the right direction.
They didn't do a single one. That's like the first,
Because they weren't in Philly.
ever.
They weren't in Philly. They didn't have to have the Philly street fight that every goddamn promotion has to have. If they run that fucking building over there at 2300, you got to have a Philly street fight, because if you don't, the fans will riot. God.
Well,
I feel like
AEW is about to have a
That's what you
Tijuana
Yankoid imbeciles like.
Yeah.
AEW is about to have a Tijuana street fight in Orlando. So
You know why they did that? They probably did it because they don't want to call it a Mexican street fight, because they feel like that's like, not like, yeah. So they're like, oh, we'll just call it Tijuana and no one will question it. But it's like, well, I got questions because now you're in Orlando and I don't know why can't it just be an Orlando street fight. What does Tijuana have anything to do with this match?
Whoever names these shows, like, I remember they were going to run a show in New York and they were going to call it like I don't know, like New York City
Ground Zero.
Right, or something preposterous like that. Right. You're just like, yeah, New Japan Pro Wrestling 9/11 tragedy. Like, what? That's not a great name of a show.
Again, it's better than the Dominion poster with the SS Nazi.
yeah, the Nazi sign.
So we know they're capable of it.
They are capable of it. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
So, we just talked about like the U.S. and some of the global expansion. How have you guys been feeling about the partnerships? Obviously, we've been seeing a lot of stuff with AEW and the Forbidden Door. We're seeing Wrestle Dynasty. There's been a lot more stuff with CMLL. There's always Fantastica Mania, but we've seen a lot of guys go to Mexico, and we've seen some Mexican guys being fused in New Japan now. There's Rev Pro, Impact. How are you feeling about New Japan globally? I mean, we kind of talked about the U.S., but I guess with their partnerships, how are you guys feeling about that?
Now, listen, Rocky needs to work too, It's the guy needs to put food on his table. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels that way in the sense of, wow, we have a lot of partnerships, and wow, Rocky Romero is second from the top on all these shows. That's crazy. That's amazing how that works out. And then on a lot of these strongs, we do see a lot of CMLL representation. So I'm sure it is a back scratching situation in both cases. Look, it is, as long as it's, I think from a U.S. perspective, it is a easy way to put people on a show and fill out a show on the cheap. I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, it is one way, and it's not like they're the people that they're bringing in are garbage. They're very good, but again, it just feels like it's a good wrestling show as opposed to anything that really feels cohesive with New Japan Pro Wrestling. They've had partnerships throughout their history, and sometimes they press hard on the gas, and sometimes they'll ease up. I think the partnership is good in the sense that it is a cost-effective way to fill out these U.S. shows. I think it's a thing where if they're in a pinch and they need talented bodies to help fill out a card, they're there, both in the UK. And again, we get, CMLL gets to reap some benefit from that and get some new fresh talent in the mix there on a promotion that, arguably is promotion of the year. So, look, I can't say from a fan perspective that this is a marriage made in heaven. the AEW stuff, quite frankly, I could do without. I honestly, I like the fact that you have guys that can get on national television in a heartbeat, right? And they're getting more eyeballs on them than they probably would in any other way, right? Of methods that are available to them. I just think it's a weird dynamic. I don't know who it's helping. I don't know who it's helping. Aside from one-off shows where they're counting the loot at the end of the night, and we're in the red or we're in the black. I don't see. I guess when this was first thought of and first announced and first kind of put into motion, I think people had a vastly different idea of what this could be and what it should be, and what it is now. It's Fire Pro Wrestling. It's, again, dream matches that nobody really even thought we would even want. And on paper, they sound cool, but in the grand scheme of things, it's Fantasticomania in the US.
Yeah, it's cool matches in a vacuum. And I sort of liken it to having a sort of relationship, like a fuck buddy with someone who's really, really attractive. And then you start getting carried away, and you start thinking, maybe we'll get married and have kids. But no, you just forget that shit because they're just not reliable enough for that. But when you do hook up, you always have a good time. And I've been a bit sort of softer on the AEW relationship than a lot of people this year, because I think New Japan have got some really cool stuff out of it, like the Takeshita G1 run, brilliant. Getting Kenny Omega at the Tokyo Dome in a singles match, brilliant. I'm not going to turn my nose up at that. But I do genuinely think that Tony Khan's intentions for the partnership are good. I think he really loves New Japan and wants it to work out and wants to do right by them. But
not at his expense. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know, man. I've heard that he's putting his hand in his pocket when it comes to AEW guys taking these New Japan dates in the States. So I think, I don't know, whoever's fed me that line might be trying to give a bit of spin there. But my point being that I don't think he's like the boogeyman that some New Japan fans make him out to be. I just think it's a sloppy shop over there, and it's so disorganized that it's impossible to have any sort of long-term build or anything meaningful, because I think any plans that they might have had, even thinking of stuff for January 5th, have just been blown up and tossed in the bin and have had to be rebooked on the fly, because barely any of that makes sense. It's like you said, it's Fire Pro random select button. So I mean, I made my peace with the AEW relationship. I know what it is now, and I sort of keep it at arm's length and enjoy the cool matches when they come. Bryan Danielson stuff with Zach this year, that's been great. So I don't think we should hand wave that, because there's been a lot of really cool stuff to come out of it that has benefited New Japan. Mainly when it comes to partner relationships, I just want guys who are talented and hungry. I think being hungry is a really important part, because I don't want big stars coming over who are just sort of going through the motions. I want guys who have got a bit of a chip on their shoulder and a point to prove, maybe trying to make a name for themselves or sort of turn around their reputation. And I would like to see more of that with CMLL. Just the CMLL stuff, I don't really know what to make of it, because we always talk about the Soberano thing of, he signed with New Japan, and then you can't find him with a search party. And
at all.
We've seen this thing like Templario has announced a new United Empire member. I think it's equally likely that he is an integrated part of United Empire and is doing loads of tours and loads of stuff with New Japan, or the other option being we don't see him ever again in the New Japan ring.
Yeah, he'll be like Jay Lethal and Jay.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they'll team together during Fantasticomania.
Yeah. And like Strong in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think there's some good stuff coming out of the Rev Pro relationship, but that's just a fine line dance they have to do there, where they're not plucking Rev Pro's top guys before they're ready. Like, I know everyone talked last year about Luke Jacobs, but Luke Jacobs is a guy who they're building the company around at the moment. So it's like they've got to wait for Rev Pro to finish telling their stories with them and making their money from these guys, or get them before they start doing that, like a guy like Callum Newman, for example. So, again, I do think there's a lot of value in the Rev Pro relationship. And, yeah, if I had one wish for 2025, it would be more CMLL guys, because they're great, and it's a really top promotion at the moment.
Callum Newman, man, there's a name we haven't heard, huh?
I agree with the points you guys are making there. And by and large, I think you both bring up some really important and points that need to be had with the right perspective. Because it's easy to get sensationalized and to try and act in bad faith, but there's positives and negatives to all of this stuff. I remember when New Japan for many years ago had announced the IWGP Concepcion, and all these different groups were going to be part of their IWGP conglomerate. And we sort of still have a version of that. And I mean, in a perfect world, the guys that are together in this partnership, circle, which is, AEW, CMLL, Stardom, and New Japan, those are some of the best promotions in the world. It's like what you said, Damon. This should be a lot better than what it actually is, what it could be. But a lot of it does come down to what you mentioned, Joel, like the sloppy shop stuff where, and especially with AEW, I think that they've got their own issues at the time that prevent this partnership from being everything that it could be. The biggest issue, though, and the thing that I think really hinders and is the biggest detriment that draws back from any positives that might be gained from it, is how so many people have just been signed away to AEW from New Japan Pro Wrestling, which, like, I get it. These are human beings. They want to get paid. There's other mitigating circumstances with the economy and everything that fell out from the pandemic. So it's not like I think these people should be held to non-lucrative contracts and everything like that. But at the same time, when there's a partnership and so many different people get signed away, at a certain point, that's where the talk comes in, where it's like, all right, Japan is just a feeding ground in the minor leagues to these other promotions. And there has to be something in place to prevent that from being the case. I understand that we live in a free market society where people can come and go as they please, but if they're going to be partners, there's got to be something to remedy that ongoing issue, because it's becoming the biggest black mark on the entire thing. And why I personally, as a fan, am, and then, like,
what
I'm
can
not
you do,
that
though?
like
Everyone loves New Japan. If the money and travel weren't shit, then everyone would have stayed. It's just a simple question of money. That's what it comes down to. And I would sort of throw out the question, if AEW hadn't signed Okada and Ospreay, what's the likelihood that they would have just ended up in WWE anyway? But it just comes down to money.
That's
and I don't know
certainly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of talk of him actually going WWE when it was all being talked about.
And
I
Jay
guess
would
the
have
one
gone
common
if they hadn't have put that hiring freeze on. Jay would have definitely ended up there.
Yeah.
Partnerships in pro wrestling are always one-sided. I can't think of one that is like a nice, even Steven. Everybody's listen. There are 4 guys right now doing a Noah podcast at the end of the year talking about how they're fucked over by New Japan. Right? That's true. And you could do that for every single pocket of time, and even within the company. You think people that, like, I don't know, I'll give you a terrible example, but like loved wrestling and romance were like, okay, great, we're invading New Japan. No, they wound up taking the bitch end of it. When the UWF came in, yes, there were times where it was like, okay, it may seem even, but at the end of the day, they were bitches. And I can't say it's always been that way, but it feels like it's always been that way. Anytime that there's always a dominant partner in a pro wrestling relationship. And the second thing is that these are independent contractors, and they're going to look for that, where's follow the money. Yeah. They're going to follow the money.
The yen is down, Damon.
The yen is down.
It's reductive, but it's true. Like, there's nothing New Japan can do about that.
Yeah, Pro Wrestling USA worked out.
Perfect example, right? Pro Wrestling USA. No, but seriously though, I mean, that was a promotion that again, all these old regional territory promoters said, okay, we're going to run shows and we're going to have the Roadies and Flair and Magnum and Dusty and Nick Bockwinkel and they couldn't agree on the price of a popcorn, let alone who's going to win and who's going to lose and who's going to do what. Right. So Yeah, it's pro wrestling. Like you are inherently bred to worry about yourself, right? And take care of yourself. And that stretches from you as an individual to the company you work for. If you got the book, or if you own the company, like you want your guys to look like they're better than their guys. And that's
in the immortal words of Nick Jackson, don't be a mark for a company, only be a mark for yourself.
But that's pro wrestling, right? And until the day
is this
comes
the right
where,
time to plug the JCast Patreon?
Go for it.
$5 tier, right? That's where you want the deli. But that's the nature of the beast, I guess. And until there's a time where it's like, okay, there's a players association, right, that represents the players against the owners when it comes to contract negotiations and terms and blah, blah, blah. These guys are independent contractors that have to pay their own taxes that are getting paid on the dollar. What, at one point it was like half, maybe. I mean, listen, as much as I sat here and said that it was the best of times, we also went through the worst of times. And there's Molly right there. Look at this. We got to run it.
I had a conversation with one of the wrestlers who was having a negotiation with New Japan when it came to end of year last year, and I won't name any names, but they were like, "We're giving you a pay raise. We're going to pay you this much money." They're like, "Yeah, but the yen is worth this much, so you're only paying me this many dollars. You're actually giving me a cut." And they're like, "No, we're increasing the amount we're paying you because we're paying you this much yen." And he's like, "It's only worth this many dollars."
Josh, I swear to you, I'm going to tell you a quick story. Obviously, I'm not going to name names, but there are people that this year, in the year 2024, didn't have the funds or the wherewithal to get home.
Oh, wow.
How about that? How about that? Like the idea that they didn't have cab fare to make it to the fucking airport.
Better learn Japanese, buddy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Maybe they do. Maybe that person does. But it's like that kind of stuff where it's like, okay, that teaches you a lesson of I got to get mine. So
yeah, and I think we see that kind of mentality in Japan. Also, New Japan is the top promotion in Japan, and this year they've been doing a lot. This year and last year they had all these all together shows and all these like United Japan Pro Wrestling, and what happened to that? Like all these other smaller promotions were trying to work together with New Japan, but what benefit were they getting out of this?
Talking Michinoku.
And New Japan, Little Bros, all those Japanese promotions, and make sure their guys look good. And you can't get any dream matches out of those scenarios because everybody wants to protect their guys, so you're not going to get a ton of singles matches. I think the closest thing we got was like that one Noah series where we had like LIJ versus Congo, and LIJ obviously won that one. So obviously New Japan, they have that experience in Japan of being that top promotion and kind of being the A side in a lot of these partnerships. So and that's what's happening to them here in America with AEW, and also that is a negative of the relationship. But I think a pro, like Joel mentioned, is a lot of the tournament participants. If we can get guys like Takeshita and Jack Perry in these tournaments to kind of freshen up the field.
Come on, don't put them in the same sentence. We've said a lot of things to stretch our credibility, but you've just crossed the line there, Jeremy.
We can get Takeshita, Gates of Agony,
and also, like you mentioned, we had the Zach Bryan stuff, and also we had the Kenny Omega Ospreay series that kind of stretched between both promotions. So I think from like a getting great matches standpoint and getting kind of cool stuff like that, I think it's great. But then, okay, what is the benefit for New Japan at the end of the day if we're not getting a lot of these matches on New Japan's programming, or we're not getting New Japan guys featured? You look at Forbidden Door now with so many AEW guys, with so many New Japan guys being signed up. It's like, all right, now it's time for, if Tony Khan really wants to help New Japan, like, all right, put Umino in there against one of your top AEW guys. Put Umino against Swerve. Put Tsuji in there against, John Moxley.
That's because he doesn't want him. He wants 2019. He wants 2000. He wants Ishii. He wants Tanahashi. He wants those guys that, like, he's not interested in making anybody a star. Like, he's not interested in making Tsuji a star. He's not interested in making Shota a star, maybe to a tiny bit, but like he could, I mean, he wants that, and again, I don't want my youngsters there because to me, that's just a showcase. He dazzles them and then, hey, there's a blank check in his locker. I don't want that.
I think there's an answer here. The answer is New Japan takes the money that they're not spending to fix the website, right? And they use that to sign away Takeshita and get him to come here. And then it's even Stevens. I think we're good if we just get
Harold May to come back. She had the right idea.
Yeah.
This is a little bit off topic, but just because we're talking about Japanese stuff and the cross promotion, I don't know that this is the case, but this is just what I think in my gut. I think that Kiyomiya actually legit kicked Okada and it was never agreed to, and kicked him that fucking hard to basically pull a Ricky Choshu. And then that's why he got buried so bad in the Tokyo Dome by Okada. Just throwing that out.
No, I get that. My working theory was that's why Okada left. Fuck this. Why am I getting kicked in the face by this little punk who doesn't even work for us? I'm out.
I could work for 12 minutes on TV, say the word bitch. I don't even. Yeah. This is going to be incredible.
Yeah. Weather nice, living in. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, nobody's going to kick me in the face. This is great.
I'm going to be my own title. I'm going to have my own universe a la Cody. It's going to be great.
Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? Yeah. I mean, look. Truth be told, I've not seen him there. I've only seen clips, right? I mean, if you can get the work, right? I mean, if that's what you're getting paid to do, he's doing fine. He's doing fine. Is it my cup of tea? Do I think it's a waste? He's living life.
Yeah. Well,
I've said before, I'm not looking at the current iteration of Okada in AEW thinking, man, I wish that guy was back in New Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of finally kicking it into gear a little bit now because the Continental Classic is going on, so he's kind of in a round-robin mode. So he has been having some good matches on TV lately, but...
He doing any jobs?
Yeah, he did lose to Kyle Fletcher pretty clean.
Was it clean?
Well, this was a low blow, but
okay.
Into a brain buster.
Not clean.
But yeah,
I said at the time, when Okada left, I did my little spiel and said maybe him leaving isn't the worst thing in the world. Can we now sort of reevaluate that at the end of the year and think, actually, has it worked out better for New Japan? They've got their house in order. They've managed to push and establish the guys that they want to establish. And Okada's completely checked out. So it's a win-win.
I mean, maybe if he'd never left, maybe they wouldn't have tried to elevate Tsuji and Umino. Maybe Umino wouldn't. Maybe it'd be Okada Zach in the Dome this year if Okada had stayed.
I think if he had stayed and he was willing to do business, he's the linchpin to make everything work.
Sure.
But because he didn't.
Word if he's doing so much heavy lifting there, Josh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was a big problem of, okay. And there were people that would tell us, well, he is who he is. He doesn't have to do it. Of anybody that doesn't have to do, and I don't agree with that at all. Like, I have a massive problem with it.
What if Jumbo never jobbed Mizawa? What would we be talking about in the 90s?
I mean, you can go up and down the line, right? I mean, just throughout history, I understand. Again, it falls back on, hey, listen, I'm going into business for myself, and I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that job, brother. Great. Okay. Well, now we're having a conversation of
Kikuchi to call up some of his boys.
right. Get on Twitter and start
beautiful wife,
firing off.
Kazuchika. It'd be a shame.
Yeah. Then his mom can get upset. What?
That stuff didn't happen.
I mean, maybe it did.
False allegations.
Maybe it did. I don't.
Maybe it did.
Maybe it did. Look again. If you said to me, you can have Okada, he hops right back in, and he's willing to do business, I would take him in a heartbeat, in an absolute heartbeat. Right? I can't sit here and say that I wouldn't. The current version, it's like, to me, I don't even know if Shinsuke Nakamura is alive. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what program he's in. I don't know if he's. I don't know if he's. Yeah, I don't know if he's breathing the same air as us at this point. I don't know.
No, he's not, because he
idea.
breathes black mist now.
Oh, he's doing mist. Oh,
Yeah.
Spooky.
Nice.
He's got
All
black
right.
mist. Got
Nice.
paint on his
Fit
face.
right in New Japan. Rush.
Right. You can learn from
On a
TJP.
few spooky goblins.
Yeah,
We love that.
the Oswong versus Nakamura. Let's do it.
Oh, let's do it. But yeah, I mean, but that's where I put him now. Like it's just like he's just in a corner collecting dust for me. And if he comes back, great. But yeah, for right now, I got no interest in it.
Yeah.
None.
Well, kind of changing topics here. I do want to talk a little bit about G1. Also, that's one of the big focal points of the year. And this year, we returned back to 2-block format. They did kind of add in the new semifinal kind of wrinkle of having, you know, the A2 and A3 facing off and B2 and B3 getting into that to the final. So overall, what were your thoughts on this year's G1 being back to 2 blocks, the semifinal format, and having some of these young guys in different blocks, mixing it up with the established guys?
I'll take
Jeremy,
it
have
first
you
because
railroaded us back to segment 3 of the notes?
Yes, I have, because we
We're going all the way to segment 7, because I was hoping that by sort of dragging you into deep waters like this, you just abandon the format and we just wrap it up soon. I'm sweating now.
I'll take it
We're in the
first.
summer?
And I'll keep it short for you guys. I love that they went back to a classic format that we can all sort of, that we're familiar with. I like that they added a little wrinkle. I grew up watching G1s prior to 2010, where they had a variety of different methodologies that they would do year over year. So I'd be okay if they stick with this or even just change it up a little bit. But the 4-block format just didn't work. We're heading back towards something a bit more traditional. Was it as good as some of the prime year G1s that we've experienced over the past decade? No, but it was the right direction, and I liked it.
I liked it. It was, you're right. Here's the problem that I have with G1 right now. It doesn't feel like it's a special marquee. I got to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and see this show because I know I'm in store for at least 2 bangers, right? I don't know if we had a legitimate, true, pants down banger in G1. I think we had some really good matches. I don't know if we had that. Wow. What
ELP Takeshita? Did that
I was going to say ELP Takesha's the
that
one.
was the closest one. Correct. That would be in that. This is a great match, right? I don't know if can sit here and say that equals or is matches the great G1 years, right? And I think that's a problem because I think people are so conditioned to G1 being this time of year of, you can't miss. I mean, truth be told, you could have missed more than half of that tournament and not skipped a beat. You really could have. That magic of G1, that thing that draws people in and gets people excited and they want to do their blocks and they can't wait to, they have matches circled and posted on their calendar so they can remind themselves that this match is a week away. I don't know if that is as prevalent. And I think at the end of the day, you're getting really solid pro wrestling, but I don't think you're getting the things that people have attached themselves to when it comes to G1.
I think they had plenty of really outstanding and memorable matches. I'm thinking like Gabe versus Zach, Gabe versus Shota. That was a really memorable one. Goto, we beat David Finlay in front of his kids. That was a really special moment. I don't know. I kind of disagree. I really enjoyed the G1. Takeshita versus Yuya, that I thought was a brilliant match. It'll be interesting to see how both of our respective year-end award polls shake out and see what the legacy of the G1 is then. If people would have forgotten about all of those matches, or if they do actually get some love when it comes to people voted.
I think this will be a year where people will need to go back and rewatch, because I think people in the moment, and I'll use the cage match at the beginning of the year. Like, I think if people went back and watched that again, that was over an hour long, right? Of some of the most brutal stuff.
I think you meant the website cage match. I was like, everyone's looking on to.
Yes. Dino Bravo was a hell of a worker. right. 5-star Hercules Dino Bravo. I think there'll be a lot of rewatching, and I think people need a little bit of, oh yeah, I remember that being great. Whereas in previous years, I think people had a clear cut. That's my winner. That's my second. That's my third. And I think people are going to need to rewatch some stuff and kind of oh yeah, that G1, that match was really good, or that New Japan Cup match was really good, or that New Beginning match was really good, or that Best of the Super Juniors. I think it's a weird time for fans as well, because I think that we're all kind of gearing up for the next levels, and waiting. And I guess there might be a little bit of hesitation to go and anoint a match as being fucking great, just because there is uncertainty about what now in 2025 is a great match.
Yeah, I think a lot of New Japan fans
I'll throw out there before you go, Jeremy. I just want to throw this out there too, and I'll kick it to you. I also think that the stuff with Zach not challenging the Dome is something to also consider how people receive this G1. You take it away.
Yeah, I think a lot of New Japan fans have a little gun shy on like their maybe love for some matches or ratings when you look at Cage Match, some of these other sites. And I think people are like, all right, what is a great match in 2025 compared to what we saw? And with G1, I don't think it was like a historic G1 that we saw in some of the heydays in 2017, 2018, 2019. But I did feel like it was kind of a reestablishing G1 to have the young guys in there in, for the most part in different blocks and mixing it up with some of the established guys that are left. And I think there were a handful of great matches or, quote unquote notebook matches that did happen. But to your point, Damon, I do think they happened, but that was August, and time moves fast in pro wrestling, especially if you are watching multiple brands. And so I don't think there was anything that was super memorable to the point of where, like, off the top of your head, you're like, all right, yeah, that's great. It's like, all right, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that G1. Yeah. Oh, yeah, like Takeshita and ELP did have this amazing match in Korakuen Hall, or Takeshita and Uemura did have this amazing match. And so I do feel like G1 did have a lot of matches I think people are probably just forgetting. And I feel like, you mentioned the Dog Pound Cage match. I think that match is super underrated, and for how violent and bloody and hard hitting, and Hanari almost
different.
Yeah, Hanari almost dying literally in that match. I feel like it's a match that's forgotten about or not given enough credit. And yeah, I think people are still kind of figuring out, all right, how do I rate New Japan in 2025 compared to how I rated it maybe in 2018?
Yeah, I think that match is special because it is special. Like it does exist, like unlike most things you would see in New Japan. And I think this G1, it was enjoyable because the different styles that were represented in G1, where it didn't necessarily always feel like you were getting this technical wrestling masterclass or the beefy, hard-hitting, we're going to knock the shit out of each other for 20 minutes. It was an absolute mix of, you had matches with Gabe that were just all-out brawls, and then you had Zach matches, and then you had, there was, it felt like, I wouldn't say necessarily it was completely different, where it was like this, again, fire pro wrestling kind of thing, but there were, you knew you weren't going to get, even though they were all filet mignons, man cannot just live on filet mignon, right? You got to mix it up a little bit. We got to throw in a pasta dish every once in a while, right? Just to kind of cleanse the palate. And aside from Yano in most years, and Fale maybe, you really didn't have that. And I think this year there was a lot more of that. And I think that was people finding their groove in G1 for a lot of those guys, right? Just finding, look, that is the middle of the summer in Japan. I don't care what anybody says. That is a grind. G1 is an absolute meat grinder. And if you happen to get hurt on night 2, and now you've got 9 more to go,
that's rough.
You're asking a lot of, you're asking a lot of guys from guys. So again, a weird year, a year in transition, and I think G1 kind of speaks to that.
Yeah, I also think the G1 qualifiers was an interesting wrinkle to kind of help try to add some more importance to G1 and have guys fight to get in. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, I definitely think
that was great.
Yeah, it was G1, and we're still kind of finding our place as we're integrating the young guys and kind of advancing things. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of other stuff in some of these other segments, so I will jump down to the final segment here, going into predictions for 2025. So, who do you guys think is gonna, kind of quote unquote grab the brass ring in 2025? What are some things you want to see in 2025, and how are you feeling about Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty starting off 2025?
I think Jeremy and Joshua and Joel take the brass ring, and Damon retires in 2025. That's my prediction.
If you do retire, can I get your hard drives?
I'll tell you what. I was actually kind of going through a bunch of them. You sent me a drive. I'll copy everything I got. I'll give you everything I got. You supply the drive. You mail me the 2 terabyte drive or whatever it is, and I will give you everything I own.
All right.
You just made Josh's Christmas wish come true.
We're never going to see Josh again, so Jeremy, it's just me and you, yeah?
Yeah.
Everything that I ever wanted New Japan World to be is finally going to happen for me, thanks to Damon.
All right. I'm glad I get that. Listen, I get Joel the handheld video game thing. You this, Jeremy, just whatever you wish for. I'm Father Christmas. Father Christmas.
All right, I gotta think what I want, and I'll come back to you.
All right.
I'll answer your question. I'll give you a prediction. So I think Shota Umino is going to prove a lot of the doubters and a lot of the haters wrong on January 4th and prove himself. I don't think he's going to win, but he's going to prove himself to be a serious guy. And then I think a year later, even though this is technically not 2025, he is the guy who retires Tanahashi at the Dome.
Oh, big one.
Nice.
All right. Predictions. 2025, New Japan Pro Wrestling will attempt with a partnership with AEW to deliver on a Madison Square Garden show.
Oh, that's a great one.
That is not pastrami. Let it be known. That is just me throwing it out there. But I'll take that. And then I like Yota to probably take that next level. I think he wins a title come January 4th. Let me give you something crazy. How about New Japan signs? They get a little bit frisky with their checkbook, and they sign a top level talent that is not currently on the roster, but is Japanese, that will send shockwaves through the wrestling world. How about that?
I don't know who that would be.
That is El Samurai making a back from retirement. No, I'm not gonna. I don't know who, but I'm just throwing it up.
Is there a top level star that's Japanese? Like
Kento Miyahara?
That would be a big one.
Right?
That would be the death knell for them.
I mean, let's be honest here. They're not quite, financially. I don't want to say stable, but yeah, I mean, they're counting their pennies. Let's put it that way. I think something big is around the corner. I think New Japan. I wouldn't
know. I only watch the real wrestling, just New Japan.
You're gonna get those freedoms people chiming at you. The Sara.
Oh, man. I don't really have. I suck at predictions. I think that
Matt Vandergriff in the G1.
That'd be funny. No, I think that they are going to go with Hiromu after this match with Naito. I think that a lot of people are probably expecting for this to be a one-off of some sort, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying that he'll be a top level world champion sort of thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they let him graduate to the heavyweight ranks after this match. Maybe a never run, maybe challenges for a white belt, that sort of thing. I think that'd be a good way to go. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. I am very interested to see what they do with this Tanahashi run. And I like Joel's prediction there for him and Shota Umino. I think we'll see a major like Sumo Hall level show run by Reiwa guys. I don't know if that's going to be in April or if we see that for like Dominion sort of thing, but I wouldn't be surprised at that. And then I don't know what's something crazy.
Kenta and Chase Owens win.
I'll say it. An outsider wins the G1.
Oh,
Okay.
see, I want that. I think that would be so great to have that final, right? Pick your promotion. I don't give a shit, but have that guy make the finals, and then it's okay. It's two companies. Who's better, right? Like that's always fun, always interesting. But yeah, once again, we talk about pro wrestling and how it's look out for me, and there are bitches in the relationship. Well, we'll see if that happens.
For me, I'm going to say that Gabe Kidd is going to win New Japan Cup, which will then
that's a good prediction.
Spiral into him becoming a babyface because Finlay will not be happy with him winning New Japan Cup, which will then kind of do the turn, the slow burn babyface turn to him becoming the top foreigner, and New Japan kind of challenging Zack for that top foreigner spot.
Oh, so many jokes, Joel, right now that I'm just on the tip of my tongue and I can't say them. God damn it.
Well, yeah, I was going to just say one thing. A lot of people talking about Sanada being Jake Lee's replacement. I don't think he's Jake Lee's replacement in Bullet Club. I think he's Gabe Kidd's replacement in Bullet Club. So think on that.
So does that throw my prediction out the window? Or no?
No, I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the one thing, though, that I would just like to see happen throughout this year is whatever kind of momentum New Japan gets, let it just stay sustained because it was so up and down, up and down. I mean, how many times did I have to listen to you guys say, we're so back, and we weren't so back?
That became our catchphrase for a while.
Restore the feeling.
Yeah, well, let's restore the feeling, or you know what, whatever feeling it is that we get, let's just keep it for a while. Just sustain for a little while. It's gonna be okay. But I am looking forward. I think there's a lot of positive things on the horizon for New Japan, and it's gonna be very interesting to see what the fallout from this 1-4, 1-5. I will say this: I think 1-4 is going to outperform 1-5 easily.
I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, I think on paper it looks fantastic, 5, but I mean, Joel's been saying it a lot, and I don't want to steal his thunder on that, but like, I like the fact that there is a little bit of a line in the sand of a New Japan show, and then this wacky Fire Pro Wrestling show. I'm super excited for it. Only because there's so many things that are up in the air and yet to be determined, and I'm rooting for everybody. I'm sure there's a lot of people going into that dome with chips on their shoulder and like feel like they have something to prove, and they want to knock the ball out of the park. And to me, that type of environment is fantastic for a pro wrestling show, right? There's nothing worse than going into a show knowing that everyone's established, and I don't want to say lazy, but like they got their spot, and they got like we got tons of people in this show that are clawing and scratching and trying to climb that ladder and be a guy. And this is the brightest stage. So yeah, I'm pumped, man. I haven't been this pumped for Wrestle Kingdom since probably the last time I was there, which was 2020. So yeah, I'm into it. I'm ready.
Yeah, this is very exciting. I think, with a lot of it's the uncertainty of like which way the booking's going to go, and with some of the young guys in top spots, I do feel like, it's kind of a great Wrestle Kingdom for, especially for lapsed fans, to maybe jump in, kind of see where things are at, and to see where things will go in 2025.
I've got one.
They got to know that.
One last prediction.
Yeah,
it's an outlandish one. It's a crazy one, but it just might happen. New Japan gets an English website official once again.
Whoa!
Just end it. Cut it. This one's gone.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, guys, this has been a great little conversation here. Anything you guys want to plug before we get out of here?
Take it away, Joel. This is your wheelhouse, my friend.
Not really.
Oh my God.
Let me do it. We said we would never do it, but hey, why not? A little Patreon action is right there. So sign up, follow us on the Twitter machine, and you'll get a link to our Discord where you get access, and it's fun. And again, a lot of, as we call them, the pastrami is there. We don't really share a lot on Twitter anymore. It's all there. We're trying to come up with some wacky ideas for other shows and other content, and just make it worth your while. So there are multiple tiers. So give us your money, please. Thank you.
Yeah, and for us, you guys can follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky at KI Strong Style. Check us out over at socialsuplex.com. We're part of that network. You can also subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/KI Strong Style. We do these weekly video streams as part of that Patreon, ad-free audio, bonus content, so you can check us out over there. Also, we have our end of the year Christmas special that'll be released pretty soon, the FOH Draft, which is a pay what you want model for that. Me, Josh, and Rich and James from One Nation Radio. We have some drinks and bury everything we hated in wrestling in 2024. So be on the lookout. This is a sober version of that. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And again, I don't do these often, but I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys being around and continuing and doing what you're doing. I love it.
It took us many years to get all four of us together on one show. I don't know if it ever will happen again, but it was an immense pleasure and very fun. And, big fan of what you guys do. And I'm very happy we finally got a chance to get this done.
Yeah, no doubt. Always a good time. I appreciate talking to you, Josh and Jeremy. And again, keep doing what you're doing. You guys are doing great. And the more voices, pardon the pun, that we have talking about this product, the better. So excellent job as always.
I think that.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to this special crossover show. We will see you next time. All right, so you just heard us have a crossover with Joel and Damon. We want to come back here. We want to cover Strong Style Evolved that happened this past weekend, and then we'll get out of here. Josh, what do you think about the crossover?
So I thought that the crossover was fucking awesome. I really appreciate. I had to think about it for a second. I'm still a little out of it ever since FOH tried the other day. Not as bad as some other years, but definitely up there. I got in a little bit of trouble when I came home. I guess I was told I overdid it just a smidge, but. Yeah, no, it was great having, spent some time with those guys. And I mean, I can't imagine, two better people out there to kind of reevaluate the year that wasn't New Japan and kind of have not just insight, but really great perspective and, a good understanding of what took place this year and to kind of unpack that and just super knowledgeable. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun, and yeah, it was great to do audio with those guys. We've also been talking back and forth for a while now, so yeah, glad we were able to get that done.
When you said the crossover, I thought we were starting the the review of the show, and I was like, that wasn't historic crossover. I thought it was whatever it was, the LA show.
Yeah, Strong Style Evolved. So yeah, we'll talk about that. So that was from the Walter Pyramid, which happened last night on NJPW World. Show opened up. We had the Strong Survivor match, and Zane J defeats Matt Vandergrift to become the new Strong Survivor.
Yeah, so we kind of riffed on those guys a little bit during the crossover section of this episode, but it does remain to be seen what happens when it comes to Matt Vandergrift moving forward after having held the strong survivor position for so long, does he kind of graduate to a more mainstay position within New Japan, or even just New Japan Strong, or does he fade off into the distance? I don't know what's going to happen there, but I will say this: easily the best strong survivor match they have ever had. They gave those guys time. And I saw one review where someone said that a lot of the action was basic. I would disagree. I thought a lot of the stuff they did, especially the layout of the match and the structure early on, was pretty advanced for some of these guys, and probably really flexing a lot of what they learn in the academy, which is good advertising for the kind of training that they're getting. Told a fantastic story. The whole entire basis of it all was that Zane Jay's been to Japan and Matt Vandegrift hasn't. And there's a difference between understanding like Japanese wrestling from a Western perspective versus actually having gone there, experienced it, and learned, and gone under the Noge Dojo learning tree. And that's what Zane Jay was trying to implement here. And he wanted to defeat Matt Vandegrift using a Young Lions Boston Crab, and he fought for it the entirety of the match, and it crescendoed with him finally winning with a Boston Crab. They built the whole match around it. But beyond just that minimalistic story, the actual work that was done there, especially specifically from Matt Vandegrift, I think Zane Jay, great look, a lot of upside, still kind of green. I don't think he has the best movement in the world, if I'm being honest with you. I think that some of that's a little clunky still. Even if he's doing cool stuff, it's not as organic as it could be, but he could probably shore that up, like, no doubt. But Matt Vandegrift, I know that we've talked about him not having the greatest look and stuff like that, but like, fuck, he can really go.
Yeah. And
he did some incredible stuff here. That the one thing though, he did a 450. I don't even know what the fuck it was gonna be. Maybe a 450 axe handle smash, but they like kind of overshot it. But he did a huge crazy dive to the outside, and there was great back and forth. There was great heat. They got the crowd. This was literally a crowd that was half empty when they started, and I felt bad. I was like, fuck, they're in a Walter Pyramid and it's not even like a quarter full. And it didn't really fully fill up, but the crowd got so into it. You started hearing them doing the stamp and everything. And I was like, oh, they like got this crowd over, which is a huge compliment to those guys. And they got the people invested, and really awesome near falls. I thought this was one of the best matches of the night.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I think the only thing that could have made it better if Zane Jay had come up with the black trunks and black boots to fully show that he had accepted the young lion ways. I mean, he already shaved his head.
Why was his gear like meat?
I don't know. I think that's just how his gear has been previously. But yeah, he should have came with the black trunks. He already shaved his head. So, but yeah,
I was expecting Jacqueline and and Terry to come out with him. PMS.
Yeah,
man came out looking like meat.
But yeah, like you mentioned it. Very good formulaic matchup. The whole story of Zane Jay working to get that Boston Crab, and Vandegrift being the strong survivor, undefeated all year. He had previously beaten Zane Jay in one of these challenges. So so overall it's a really good story. Yeah, the crowd was really into it, and Zane Jay was able to submit Vandegrift with the Boston Crab, gets the handshake after the match. So now it's Zane Jay will be in that strong survivor spot, and we'll see what happens to Matt Vandegrift.
Absolutely. Yeah, I went like as high as 3.5 on this. I could have gone a little bit higher, honestly.
Yeah, I think 3.5 is kind of where I'm at too.
I think, like, I don't know if I would call this like a young lion match, quote unquote, but compared to a lot of young lion matches, this was more advanced by quite a bit, honestly.
Yeah. So then the main show opened up. We had Mina Shirakawa defeating Johnny Robbie. So this was all right,
this was fine. A good opener. Mina's very over. Johnny Robbie, one of the trainees in the academy. So they got her on the show in an opening spot to kind of give her some reps and gain some experience. I didn't think the match was anything noteworthy, but I thought Johnny Robbie I thought her movement was pretty good. There was definitely some greenness there as well, especially with some of her strikes. But overall, I was pretty impressed. I thought this was a good opener. It wasn't anything like noteworthy, but pretty good. I thought that they did a great job down the stretch doing the formulaic young lion hope spots where Johnny Robbie kept getting these close near falls, and you think they're done, and then she gets another one, and you're like, oh shit, that one might actually work. And then ultimately Mina, picks up the big win, but very much like a formulaic. They want to give a little bit more to this lion sort of structure to the match.
Yeah, and Johnny Robbie is a student from the academy, so it totally makes sense that it had that formula, and I think she's pretty new in wrestling, just coming back from a neck injury, commentary said. But yeah, I thought she moved around the ring really good, and yeah, they did give her some great near falls towards the end, and Mina put her away with her driver, I forget what she calls it, but also Mina winning would play into the closing of the show. But yeah, fine opener here, and yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing more of Johnny Robbie and seeing her progress. So then following that,
I made a joke there, but I didn't.
Following that, we had the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team Title Match. The boyhood dream has come true. The West Coast Wrecking Crew defeat the Grizzled Young Veterans in 12 minutes and 43 seconds to become the new Strong Openweight Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, I think this was one of the first 2025 Fighting Spirit Award candidates to finally see these guys, the West Coast Wrecking Crew, after this many years and this many attempts, finally sure up their attempt to win the Strong titles. Pretty special moment, honestly. The Walter Pyramid crowd wasn't necessarily like jam-packed, but I thought that the audience in attendance was really reactive and very tuned in, and they seemed to be invested into the product. So even if the building itself was somewhat, I don't want to say empty, because they did draw a good house, but it wasn't like those first Walter Pyramid shows where it was like sold out, jam packed. It wasn't like that, but the crowd was super into this match, and they were living and dying with West Coast Wrecking Crew. I thought the match itself was good, pretty good, very good, but ultimately West Coast Wrecking Crew, they were up against other cheaters, and then they did a tit for tat. Grizzled Young Vets were cheating, and then they cheated back, and they got the upper hand, and then won the match with a roll up with some tights, and the crowd just lost their shit. They popped for them, and they noted on commentary, one person said, I've been waiting 3 years for this. So West Coast Wrecking Crew winning in the West Coast, the originating home of New Japan Strong, very poetic. And it's interesting because on the one hand, you have to kind of wonder and be like, if West Coast Wrecking Crew didn't win here after this many times, like it would just like, they're just done basically. But they just also came off of winning that long, arduous feud with Dirty Work, and you're kind of wondering, like, Grizzled Young Vets just like they hot potatoed this a little bit, kind of treated them like transitional champions. So I don't know, maybe if that was to kind of bolster the house a little bit, add a little bit of star power to the match. But yeah, I'm glad for those guys.
Yeah, finally, we have been saying we thought from the inaugural Strong Tag Team Tournament that these guys, they were going to be the first champions, and because, the division's kind of been built around them. And so, yeah, for years now, they would get all these title shots and lose. And honestly, I didn't really expect them to win just because they always beat them, and Grizzled Young Veterans just won the titles. They're AEW guys, but like you mentioned, Royce Isaacs was able to, grab a handful of tights, get the big win there. They were in the California, that West Coast area, which they've, wrestled all up and down. So there's a lot of fans there that, popped for them winning. And then in the post-match, we had Rocky Romero coming out, and, he was kind of in the VP role at first and kind of congratulating them and mentioning how they had been working so hard for all these years. And it was great for them to, finally be strong tag team champions. And he kind of went into wrestler mode and was like, But, we have Battle in the Valley coming up, and I'm a great tag team wrestler, and me and Yo or Punky Revice want to challenge you guys for the titles come Battle in the Valley. And they accepted the challenge, and then they drop Rocky on his head with a big German suplex.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of wrestlers having the dual, like, right now I'm speaking as a president or figurehead, but now I'm going to speak as a wrestler. It's like, I don't know, bro. It seems like a conflict of interest. Like,
yeah,
you're like the booker. You're putting yourself in the position of power. Why don't you just come out as a wrestler? Like, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, it's that weird thing. Kind of same thing with like Tanahashi. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, when you have, obviously in real life, we know these guys have a real life position, so you don't want to insult the fans' intelligence by not acknowledging that. But then at the same time, yeah, it's kind of weird. They're like, all right, well, yeah, you can just book yourself, whatever.
Yeah, it's fine, but I'm sure that will be a good match. I don't know. Like, I'm a big fan of Rocky, Yo's Yo. I'm sure the match will be good, but I don't know if that's something where I'm like clamoring to see that match at what is it? Battle in the Valley. So
yeah. So then,
who knows? They might do what they did last year, where they didn't announce anything for Battle in the Valley until a couple days prior after Wrestle Kingdom, and be like, oh yeah, by the way, we're doing Will Ospreay versus Okada and Jon Moxley versus Shingo. Oh, but you can't get there because it's only a few days away. But now you know.
So following that, there was a 4-way preview match for the IWGP Junior Tag Team title match coming up at Wrestle Kingdom 19. So we had TJP defeating Clark Connors, Kosei Fujita, and Kushida in 10 minutes and 24 seconds.
I thought this was very good. I'm not a big fan of 4-way matches. I actually realized this watching the match. I was like, I'm a bigger fan of the high-speed junior tag team 4-way matches than I am just a traditional 4-way match in general. And part of it is because oftentimes 4-way matches have certain tropes and formulas that I'm just not that invested into. I feel like if you've seen one of these, you've seen a million of them. But the one thing that separates this one quite a bit and some of the other 4-way matches that I actually have liked in the past is when they're laid out in a really great structure that adds a lot of excitement. And you have the types of performers who can do it in such a fluid manner. Then it really can kind of transcend some of those limitations. And that's what I thought they did here. The only really big drawback at the end was Clark Connors clearly tapped out before the 3 count. When they did a spot at the end. And actually, I've lost track of who was doing what, but I remember that there was a pinfall victory, but right before the 3 came down, he was already tapping. The referee didn't see it. So I think it was Kosei Fujita should have gotten the win here, but he didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, TJP rolled up Kushida.
That's right.
Where Kosei had a submission on Connors.
Yeah, and the rules are kind of weird in 4-way matches too, because it's like, how does the pinfall supersede the submission move, which was put on first anyways? It was already like an ongoing action. But even if you wanted to argue that wasn't, doesn't matter, the tap occurred before the 3 count. So, I mean, do we not? It's 2024. We don't have like instant replay. Like,
nah,
there's not a referee in the back watching that can come out and be like, oh no, he actually tapped first. But whatever, it is what it is. I don't know if that was a miscue or whatever, but I watched it with my own 2 eyes. I saw it.
But yeah, fun match. Good preview for the junior tag team match. Kind of a X Division style matchup where guys kind of in and out doing flips and stuff. So yeah, it was a fun matchup. Then following that, we had Hechicero defeating Leo Rush.
This was a match that on paper sounded cool, but kind of had some of those same similar elements that we were talking about earlier, where it was like, this feels a little, what's it called?
Fire Pro?
Yeah, a little Fire Pro, And it was sort of, in my mind, I was like, if this was happening in PWG, the Reseda crowd would be like, tearing it up if it was in the LA Globe or whatever. but because it's here, I just don't know. And then kind of combining that with some of the run that Leo Rush has had recently in New Japan, where I'm like, I don't know. It's hit and miss. Sometimes he's really great, and then other times it's inconsistent and not up to the level that you'd expect from him. But for whatever reason, these two dudes had their working shoes on, and they just gelled so well. And it wasn't just, I don't want to come out here and be like, oh, Hechicero carried Leo Rush. It wasn't anything like that. Leo was motivated, and like their timing was just on point. And it was such a display of different styles of wrestling. Obviously, like what Hechicero brings to the table is very hybrid already. He's able to do a lot of mat-based grappling and Yave, but, also incorporate dazzling strikes and aerials and stuff that's exciting. And when you have someone that's as fast and as talented as Leo Rush, and who's also a great in-ring storyteller, great facials, does the high flying, and, can really go on the ground and is kind of, it doesn't get the credit for how good he is at the fundamentals as well. These guys just had a fantastic match, and it went way beyond what I was expecting. We've seen a lot of people go out there during these strong shows and just kind of go through the motions and have a whatever match. This really wasn't that. This was something that I thought was pretty exceptional. I don't know where I'm at from a star ratings perspective, but I know when I see cool and guys doing incredible shit, and that's what this was. And it was pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Hechicero is just awesome, like incredible. For a guy his size, like some of the stuff that he can do is just great. And yeah, Leo Rush was great in this match too. And yeah, they just went out there, had a high pace matchups. And, Leo Rush is really great at kind of like the counter style and evading stuff. And so was Hechicero, the alchemist of the ring. And so they're just both kind of going in and out of moves and super high pace towards the end. Leo Rush hit the Rush Hour stunner off the ropes. He got some roll-ups and hits his tornado kick. He goes for the final hour frog splash, but he couldn't hit it. Hechicero hits this nasty flying knee in the corner. Then there's this crazy like head scissors takedown thing and a roll-up for the win. So yeah, really good back and forth action, really great high-paced stuff. And yeah, it's kind of the Fire Pro as far as like New Japan's canon, but just to have a great match on there, like it was a really fun matchup, and I was always welcome like both of these guys on these kind of cards.
Yeah, I think the crowd was into it. I think they both also have been regular mainstays in the like New Japan / AEW sort of space recently, so there's a little bit more continuity involved here. And I thought that the commentary team did a good job sort of weaving the story, what these two guys have had going on in their recent professional career, and kind of adding stakes to the match that maybe, on the surface didn't appear to be there.
Yeah, I mean, and the ring announcers did announce Leo Rush is still a part of Chaos, so he's New Japan.
Okay. Well, the thing is Chaos doesn't even really exist anymore, so that's fine. He's just on tie.
Yeah. So good stuff there. Following that, we had the United Empire team of Jacob, Austin Young, and Templario defeating the LIJ team of Hiromu and Teton. So originally this was supposed to be Hanare and Jacob, Austin Young, but also Hanare getting that knee injury during World Tag League. So last week as we were recording, MJ told us that they announced that Templario was the replacement, and then we kind of joked like, oh yeah, he's a new member of United Empire, but actually, yes, he is now a member of United Empire. They had a video where TJP, the leader of the group, is recruiting, and he recruits Templario as a part of the group. So Templario has a new green and black gear now, and so this is his first outing as a member of United Empire.
Yeah, I liked that he has sort of invested and bought specific gear for the United Empire, kind of making it a bit more cohesive and, making him feel like he's part of the unit. I don't know. Again, we talked about it earlier in the evening. I don't know if if it's something where we see these guys team up going forward all the time and it just becomes part of the canon, or if it's like literally could become a one-off. You just never know with these sorts of things. But on the commentary, they did a great job explaining the situation when it comes to Hanare with him being out and Okan looking for a replacement, and potentially either Jacob Austin Young or Templario, if they were impressive in this match, maybe they, fill that candidacy to tag with him on 1-5 to face off against the Young Bucks. One thing I didn't really expect, though, the match itself was really great, especially anytime we had Teton and Templario in there together. They just dazzled. But I really didn't expect Templario to beat Teton. Like I kind of get it. But Jacob Austin Young was right there. And to me, that just screams pin eater, especially considering the three other names in the match there. There's nothing wrong with what they did. It was bold, and I actually appreciate it. But given the fact that like Teton is like the reigning world welterweight champion in CMLL, I just didn't think we'd see him take a loss, especially not in California on a New Japan show like that. And yeah, he did a clean JOB to put over Templario, which really makes me suspect that he is going to be the guy that teams with Okan to take on the Young Bucks. And, a luchador guy wrestling against the Young Bucks in the Dome, that makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, and that's why I thought he was going to win, because, all the rumors were, he's a new member, and now, he's going to be the one that Okan chooses to face the Bucks. So, I think it was perfect booking sense to also, he's a kind of a new debut, and to have him win because he's going to be in a match at Wrestle Dynasty. It makes kind of sense. And plus, him and Teton kind of have a rivalry going on in CMLL as well. And you can probably do a title match off of this. So, I think having him win makes all the sense. And, so he hits the lumbar check onto Teton to get the win for the team. And TJP kind of throws, United Empire flag on these guys. And so, I think for also being the first time teaming up with Jacob Austin Young, I thought they ended up being a pretty good team as well. And Hiromu and Teton are a good team also. And so, it was a fun tag match.
Sure.
So then following that match, we had the NJPW Strong Openweight title match. We had Gabe Kidd defeating Ray Oiwa.
I thought this match was good. The crowd was into it. It definitely was hard hitting, but it sort of felt abrupt in its finish, which I know is kind of the opposite of some of the complaints I've had about about Gabe Kidd's title matches, where I felt like they were a little bit long in the tooth. The person just kept kicking out. But in this one, it felt like they were on track to have something that was building to something significant, and then boom, boom, he just gets him out of there, which is nothing wrong with that on the one hand, because you do want to make Gabe Kidd look strong, and they did a good job of that. And that is probably the primary need here, especially since he's heading into the Dome to take on Kenny Omega. This is almost de facto like a tune-up fight. Without trying to be too disrespectful to Oiwa, it is essentially a tune-up match. But they did feel like they had more to give and maybe it was held back just a little bit here. All the same, this wasn't the main event of the evening, even though maybe it should have been a little bit higher on the card. So they probably, given the amount of time they had, this is probably what it needed to be.
Yeah. I feel like Gabe Kidd did a little bit too much of, paying attention to the crowd versus the match. And I get he's a heel, but there's like one fan in particular that I guess said something to him, and he was kind of going after that fan the whole match. And it just seemed like he was more concerned about that fan than necessarily this match. And they also did the whole ref bump thing. He had Clark Connors coming out with the chair. Connors pulled the ref out the as he was making the 3 count, and he pulled the referee out, and he had the chair. And then Fujita came out, made the save for Oiwa, and then it kind of went into the closing stretch, and Oiwa was going for the grip, and Kidd just kind of reversed, hit him with a power driver, hit him with the Dr. Bomb, and that was it.
I thought it was funny that he beat him with the Dr. Bomb.
Right, because that is Oiwa's move that he was getting over in Noah. But Kid's been doing that move also as well, because he calls it the Mad Bomb. So it makes a ton of sense here for him to get the win. And I know Gabe did. He was on the news again, and he did a lot of media leading up to this, talking about he should be the main event, and Mercedes doesn't deserve to be the main event. New Being Strong is his brand. And then post match, he did cut a promo on Kenny Omega, kind of building up that match. And then also he issued a challenge to Tomohiro Ishii for the Battle in the Valley. Him
beating Oiwa with that move kind of reminds me of like when The Rock beat Booker T with the Rock Bottom.
Yeah.
But I had something else I wanted to say, but I forgot what it was. I don't know. It must not have been that important.
About him challenging Ishii or Omega?
No, I mean, that stuff was fine, obviously you want to have him go out there and do a bit of a preview for those matches. And that's it. Oh, I know what it was. Commentary had mentioned that, if it's not House of Torture, interfering and stuff in Japan, then it's War Dogs in the States. So, I mean, I guess that was somewhat to be expected, that somewhere on this show there'd be some level of chicanery. But at the same time, as Joel mentioned earlier, we didn't wind up with any plunder matches. So,
you had to get the interference.
Yeah.
So, following that, we had a 6-man tag match preview for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match on January 4th. So, we had TMDK, Bad Dude Tito, Shane Hayes, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Dirty Work, Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler, and Shota Umino in 16 minutes and 45 seconds.
I don't know what the fuck is going on with Tom Lawler's gear here. Was this was that a special like Father Christmas, like Santa Claus sort of gimmick, or does he just dress that way now?
No, that was definitely a Santa. He had like a Christmas sweater on, and so this was just kind of like a Santa Claus, Christmas gimmick for this month.
Okay, gotcha. Well, the match, I thought everybody worked really hard. I mean, it feels like that's the hardest I've seen Shane Haste work in a while, which I don't know. But I thought the match was really good. A great preview for the upcoming title match between ZSJ and Shota Umino. I noticed Umino's shoulders, they're looking a bit broader. His stomach's looking a little flatter. He's got the tan going. He's darkened his hair, so he's trying to get into dome shape. And Zach, cool as a cucumber, just looking the same. But I mean, everyone worked really hard here. But this was kind of your standard semi-main event 6-man tag that you would see on like a Road to show. A preview tag. Everyone worked really hard. The crowd was into it. They were really bought in. And then, they go into their finishing. Each guy comes in, hits their big spot, their big move, boom, 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 and then it leads to the finish. So sort of formulaic, but a good formula.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yes, your kind of Road to match, and they did call it a Road to Tokyo Dome match for it being a preview, and that's exactly what it was. And I thought everybody worked hard. Bad Dude Tito was really over in the match, and the crowd was getting really behind him throughout spots in the match. And then, the closing sequence, you had Tito hitting an F5, Umino running in with the John Woo dropkick on Shane Hayes, Rosser hitting a slam to Hayes, and then these guys are kind of going back and forth. Sabre runs and hits a Zack driver on Umino. Lawler has a jumping knee on Tito and goes for the guillotine choke. But then in a great counter, Tito turns it into the Steiner screwdriver, drops Lawler on his head, 1, 2, 3. Tito gets the big win in his home area, his home territory. Crowd pops for that. And
I loved Tom Lawler's cell where he had his arms stiff, just completely out of it. It was incredible.
Yeah. There was one spot with Lawler too where he slipped off a top rope.
I thought that they were telling a story where there was miscommunication between him and Fred Rosser, but it wasn't. It clearly wasn't, because he recovered himself real quick and got back up. And I was like, oh, he accidentally actually crotched him by hitting the ropes on and knocking him off balance.
Yeah, because he got up real quick, but then also as a great pro, he started like slapping the knee and like selling the knee, and then he hit the move, and he's like still like he's like slapping his knee and selling the knee. So yeah, he did a great job recovering from that.
But I think it was Fred Rosser's fault because he was getting out of the ring and like made the rope shake, and that's why he fell. And I was like, they're gonna tell a story here, and I was like, oh wait, no, they're not. That was an actual shoot accident, unless they're just working us like Sabu. You ever hear those stories about Sabu like just botching on purpose to make people?
Mess that moonsault up on purpose. Like, sure you did. And then the post match, you had Zach and Umino going face to face, and Zach's getting all up in Umino's face. He's like, "Come on, hit me!" And he's kind of sticking his neck out there for Umino to hit him, and Umino just kept backing off, and Zach would keep getting in his face and keep telling him to hit him, and he wouldn't do it. And then eventually Umino put his neck out there for Zach to hit him, but Zach didn't do it, and there's kind of jaw-jacking. And so that was our last scene there of those two guys jaw-jacking before we get to the actual Road to Tokyo Dome tour. So then following that, we had another Road to Tokyo Dome preview match, and we had the team of Jack Perry and Konosuke Takeshita. They defeated the LIJ team of Shingo Takagi and Yota Tsuji.
One of the interesting things I noticed was when I was checking the cage match scores, this one scored pretty high. And I personally, while I don't have much negative to say about the match, I felt like this under-delivered to what it could have been. I thought that everyone did their job. But when I talked earlier about how sometimes guys show up for these New Japan Strong shows and they're kind of just, paint by numbers, going through the motions, putting in the effort. That's what I thought I saw with these four guys. But the thing with that, though, is they didn't have to do very much because they were four of the most over guys in the building, and the crowd was eating up seeing them in there together, which was really cool. But I didn't think that this was a standout match of the evening. And if it wasn't for the fact that these four guys hold such prominent positions, probably shouldn't have even, in terms of the action that we saw, I don't think it should have been semi-main event for the evening. That being said, I thought they had a really killer close, which probably makes up for some of the lack of action earlier. But compared to some of the showcase matches that we saw with Tsuji and Shingo throughout the World Tag League, I didn't think that this was in the same ballpark as many of those matches. And considering that it was Takeshita and Jack Perry, I would have imagined we would see a much higher level of match here. And I don't think they delivered the way that I was expecting them to.
Yeah, I don't think I really had super high expectations for the match. It's also made like a good preview match, and I felt like Jack Perry still has a lot of heat. He got a lot of the "Oh Cry Me a River" chants, a lot of CM Punk chants towards him, and I feel like for him, he was kind of being more of the sleazy, kind of opportunistic kind of heel in this matchup. He started off the match with Tsuji and then tagged out immediately and kind of picked his spots throughout the match. So I don't think he was like going full on out. I think he was kind of more opportunistic. And then I thought the interactions with Takeshita and Shingo were really good. They had a sequence when both of them were in there and they were hitting all their big moves, and Takeshita's just incredible. And so I think they showed a good bit that their singles match come January 4th is going to be awesome. But yeah, I think as some event, maybe they could have gone harder. Maybe you should have switched this match with the previous match, but ultimately, I thought it got the job done to kind of get a preview in for Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. And then towards the end of the match, you had Jack Perry stealing the pin and pinning Yota Tsuji.
Yeah, one thing I don't know if anyone realized this is the first time that Shingo and Takeshita have ever wrestled against one another, ever. In any capacity. So like, I feel like for me, I was like, when they got in the ring together, like if I'd been there, I'd have been like, but I don't know if that really like translated to other people, but for me, I was like, oh, it's finally fucking happening after all these years. And I can't wait for that match on 1-4. It's going to be really fantastic. But yeah, to me, this was just like a good preview match, but you go on Cage Match and it's one of the highest rated matches of the night. And I'm like, maybe just because people like these 4 guys, which I get why they do, but I didn't see it personally. I just thought it was a fine match.
Yeah. So then following that, Takeshita and Perry are beating down LIJ. Hiromu runs in to make the save, but then Matthew and Nicholas Jackson hit the ring, hit the super kicks on Hiromu, hits him with the EVP trigger. And then Matt gets on the mic and said that they are the most successful tag team in New Japan history. It's great to be back in Long Beach, and asked the crowd if they remembered when the Young Bucks faced Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega in this building, and joked that those guys are injury prone, and then they vowed to win the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles at 1-5 and win it before they retire.
Yeah, I thought that this angle worked better than the last one that they did. I don't even really remember. I think that they were just trying to build up heat for an angle that was happening on AWTV.
Yeah, the last time it was at the end of that Eddie Kingston Gabe Kidd match where Eddie got hurt and still had to roll in the ring to do the Young Bucks angle afterward. And so, yeah, it was some kind of build there.
I think it was for Blood and Guts.
Yeah. But Kingston had to get replaced in the match. So, yeah, Kingston was supposed to be against them on that team, but then he got hurt. So that's what the angle they were building up.
Yeah, I thought that this worked better. I thought the crowd reacted better. And, you know, I liked the promo they cut. I thought it was pretty effective for what it was.
Yeah. And I thought them super kicking Hiromu was a blinking sign to me that we are going to get Naito and Hiromu versus the Bucks. The Bucks are going to win 1-5, and I could see that being the Battle in the Valley match or whatever the next big show is after that.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done that if there's not a future program between those guys. So that's, speaking of Hiromu, I don't know if you saw, they did a promo backstage announcing that he is going to be involved in Sumi Sakai's retirement match here coming up in the very near future.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think that's happening at Battle in the Valley. I think it's going to be some kind of 6-man intergender matchup. So I guess the Bucks match will maybe that should be in Japan on the big show. So we'll see. And then following that, we had the main event of the evening, the NJPW Strong Women's Title match. The champion Mercedes Moné defeats Stardom Suzuki in 26 minutes and 36 seconds.
You know, not too long ago, I had a pretty lengthy sort of rant about Mercedes Moné. And since that time, she really has turned things around in quite a few ways. I mean, there's still certainly, when it comes to like the AEW stuff, and this isn't necessarily like an AEW podcast, but when it comes to the utilization of her programs on TV and the angles and the promos, that stuff is still very lacking. But when it comes to the big matches, when it's time to lace up the boots and go out there and deliver great matches, she's doing it, and she's doing it probably right now, I think probably the best she has since she left WWE. In the past I'd mentioned how there was a certain level of performance that she was doing prior to her ankle injury. And I wasn't sure if maybe that is what was holding her back or what the case might've been, but there was quite a few performances where she wasn't really working up to the reputation and expectation of, a wrestler of her caliber. But very recently, some of these big matches that she's had, especially the one at the AEW pay-per-view with Chris Statlander, that was like phenomenal. And then this match was, in my opinion, I think that this is the best match she's had post WWE and one of the best matches of her entire career. And you know what's crazy too is, like, I know Mercedes is a big star. She's very popular, and she's not exactly the same kayfabe character in New Japan as she is in, like, say, AEW, because over there she's like full on heel. Here she's kind of tweener-ish, but some of that still carries over. And like Hazuki, who, like, I don't know if your average wrestling fan like really is endeared to the Joshi scene or the Joshi wrestlers, but she was just fucking over in this building. And I think that we've seen this recently, like last year at Forbidden Door, where Stephanie Vaquer really got over in facing Mercedes, and I feel like some of that same sort of similar aspect was taking place here, where like Mercedes did a fantastic job like endearing the crowd to Hazuki, and Hazuki carried her end of the load as well, really just being very charismatic and playing up to the crowd and understanding her role. But the crispness of everything that they did, I don't know, man. Like Mercedes, like should just keep wrestling Joshi wrestlers, because every time she does, the matches are really, really good. And this one just built and built and built, and there was some really stiff stuff in there. I mean, there was a shoot headbutt. There were the face wash on the ropes that Hazuki gave to Steph or to Mercedes, like she fucking kicked her face off. It was nasty. And there's just a lot of passion. They kept slapping each other in the face and the elbows, and it just kept getting more and more violent and really just physical. And combining that with all the high flying stuff, I thought that some of the selling that Mercedes did was some of the best I've seen from her in a long time. Just like her kind of flailing around and her hair going everywhere, and like her just really like bumbling basically every time Hazuki hit her with shit. And then the match continued to build on it. There was a lot of like near falls, and then deliveries to the close near falls before, and it just kept going back and forth, back and forth. And I mean, they almost ran the risk a little bit of passing the peak, and then they ended it right at the right point. There's only one major drawback that I can really point out to about this match. Mercedes needs to stop using
the money maker.
That money maker. They fucked it up twice in this match, and it was the penultimate like finish. If you have had this many matches with top workers where you can't deliver it, or they can't learn how to take it beforehand, and it just keeps getting botched, you shouldn't still be using it. And this isn't the first time. It's not the second time. It's not the third time. It's not the fourth time. It keeps happening. But the match was so good. I don't want that to be the main takeaway here, because it really, even though it's a major, it is a major criticism, the overall match was so good that it's almost just a minor inconvenience that they botched those two moves, because you could still kind of believe in the move, the way it lands. It's still an impact finish. Mm-hmm. But I think those people thought Hazuki was going to win a few of the times, and like it started to get to that point, like really just bravo. I mean, I think this is our first match of the year contender for 2025.
Yeah, this match was incredible. And yeah, I was buying into Hazuki winning. I know we had been talking, with Mercedes as champion, all right, who's actually going to beat her? Because there are no really stars on her level in the West that seem believable enough to beat her. But this match, they made me believe here in Hazuki. There was so many great near fall. Part of the story of this match was Hazuki trying to hit that top rope senton, which is one of her finishers. And so there'd be several times where she goes to the top and would either miss or Mercedes would cut her off, and did a really good job of building to that moment where she finally hits that top rope senton, and 1, 2, and Mercedes kicked out at the perfect timing for a great near fall. Everybody thought that was it there. Then you had Mercedes hitting a bunch of backstabbers for a near fall. She hits like 3 in a row, and then she hits a big standing powerbomb in front of the great near fall. And then she hits the money maker, but Hazuki got her foot on the ropes, which I thought that was going to be the finish there. But yeah, Hazuki gets the foot on the ropes, and Mercedes is completely blown that Hazuki had to wear it all to get her foot on the ropes. And then Hazuki does a Magic Style cradle for a very believable near fall. She trailed her up, and I thought that was going to be the kind of the quick win there in a way to get the belt on Hazuki. But then Monet got up and hit a second Money Maker for the win. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why she's going back to that, because she actually stopped using the Money Maker in AEW for a little bit. She's been back to the bank statement, the backstabber crossface combo, which she did several times throughout this match as well. But yeah,
there was a power bomb that she hit on Hazuki that was so freaking nasty.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, this was just incredible. So many great near falls. And yeah, I made the joke in the group chat. I'm like, yeah, Mercedes can only wrestle Joshi and Willow and Stat.
Now, she can wrestle luchadors too.
Yeah, or Lucha, but yeah, anybody else, no, don't put her in the ring, because yeah, she came off as a star here. She gave Hazuki so much, and like you mentioned, Hazuki had a great reaction from the beginning of the match. There was a big Hazuki chance, obviously big Mercedes chance, so crowd was super into it. Clearly, they drew a smart crowd who were up on their stardom, and they knew who Hazuki was, and yeah, just a great back and forth, great story, and yeah, this was an incredible blowaway matchup. But yeah,
I'm not a big like Joshi fan. You know, I don't know all these girls. I've heard the name Hazuki. I've seen her wrestle before, but I've never it hasn't left a lasting impression. But after this match, I won't forget who she is. So I think anybody that saw it, you know, how much money they make, or how much, you know, how many bodies they draw to the arena, you know, that is one metric to kind of assess the success of these shows. But when you have a big star like Mercedes in there with somebody else, and we've kind of complained about why do they have women's titles? They don't even have a women's division and stuff like that. But when she goes out there and she has a match like this, we already know who she is, but she did it for Stephanie. Unfortunately, Stephanie got signed away to WWE. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't wish that Hazuki doesn't get paid, but you know, hopefully she doesn't get signed away selfishly, because now I want to see her again. And now there is a credible name that they can do business with, whether it's with Mercedes or someone else in the future. And I think that that's one of the key priorities when it comes to big spots like this. If you have someone put in that position, you got to work to get them over. And if they get over like this, then you did your job well.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw Hazuki wrestle WrestleMania weekend 2019 in New York on that Stardom show, and saw how awesome she was, especially in that high-speed division. And she actually retired for a little bit and came back to wrestling, came out to Stardom recently. And so for her to kind of having that time off, then jumping right back into Stardom, back in the mix of things, and not missing a beat, super athletic, just everything looked great and crisp. And yeah, that last cradle near fall, I bit that I thought that she was going to beat Mercedes. But yeah, this was a great matchup.
Well, post-match, after Mercedes wins, she cuts a promo. She says that, you know, a year prior, she had been injured in this same building, and she wasn't sure she was going to come back to wrestling, and now she's back, and, you know, better than ever, yada, yada, yada. And then she says that she wants to wrestle in the Dome, and she wants to put out an open challenge to anybody that wants to face her on January 5th in the Tokyo Dome. And then out comes Mina Shirakawa, who had won earlier in the evening, you know, a standout from AEW and Stardom, and, you know, has been active in this New Japan Women's division as well here in the States. And she accepts the challenge, and two of them do a dance off to the CEO music, and Mina Shirakawa just eats up Mercedes when it comes to the dance. And I thought one of them was going to attack one another, but it didn't happen. And, you know, Mina is the Rev Pro Women's Champion. I think she's got another title too. So, you know, both women decked in gold, and that is official for 1-5, which I feel like 1-5 was needing a match of that magnitude with these women. So it makes sense.
Yeah, so official. It seems like for right now, it's just for the Strong Women's title, even though Mercedes did say she wanted the Rev Pro Women's title. I believe Mina does have a Rev Pro title match coming up, so I guess if she retains there, then I think they might eventually make this a double title match, potentially, or maybe Mercedes was shooting, and this isn't actually not supposed to be in the picture at all, but Mina did come out with it, so yeah, maybe they do end up doing some kind of double title match at the Dome, but for right now, yeah, the NJPW Strong Women's title will be on the line, and Mercedes defending against Mina, so that should be a great matchup for that show.
It's going to be interesting to see which of the two women's title matches on 1-4 and 1-5 get more time, and which is better.
Yeah, and also on 1-5, there's going to be the four-way International Women's Cup, so two women's matches on 1-5.
Too many. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, so that was Strong Style Evolve. And
I just want to throw this out there too. I mean, I think that this is one of the best US shows that they've done in quite a while. I know that it didn't necessarily on paper have the same level of marquee matches that, like, let's say the Chicago show earlier last year or this year had. And it didn't draw quite the same level of attendance as some of the other bigger New Japan US shows, but top to bottom, and just in terms of like sustained quality throughout the night and impressive crowd reaction, I thought that this was just really over delivered, honestly. And I think this is our first show of the year candidate.
Yeah, it definitely kind of almost had a similar feel to some of those older Long Beach shows where you get a super hot crowd and they're really into it. Yeah, it didn't feel as big as maybe like Windy City Riot, but it was definitely a really good top end show, and yeah, definitely one of the better Strong shows this year. And something else announced for Wrestle Dynasty, there's going to be a Lucha Gauntlet match. And so this is going to be an 8-person gauntlet match featuring 4 wrestlers from CMLL and 4 from New Japan. Each guy will come out in a 1-minute interval, with the first person to gain a pinfall being declared the winner. So it kind of sounds like the AEW Casino Gauntlet kind of thing. But it's going to be New Japan guys and CMLL luchadors.
That's a cool match, and I've been wondering when we were going to get some more CMLL inclusion here. Those are 2 really good matches that kind of bolster that 1-5 show, and maybe throw a little bit of water on my claims of 1-4 being better, but we'll see how it all plays out. I'm still I'm just more invested in 1-4 ultimately, but those are good matches.
Yeah. And then coming up this weekend, we have the Road to Tokyo Dome shows from Cork and Hall, the Christmas Corkins. So we got Shomakato will be chasing his dream in the opener against a main roster New Japan talent. Then we'll have Bolton and Yano against Tenkoji. There will be a 3-way tag match with Jacob Austin Young and Jeff Cobb versus Narita and Yujiro versus Hartley Jackson and Oiwa. So that's a preview for the TV title match. Then we'll have a preview for the junior tag title match, or junior title match, as Despy and Wado take on Doki and Taka. Then a preview for the tag title match with Eagles versus Drilla versus Akira versus Kevin Knight. Then we'll have Bushi, Shingo, and Tsuji versus Finley, Gato, and Sonata. So a global title preview there. And then Tanahashi and Umino versus Vegeta and Zack in a world title preview. And then the main event will be for the provisional KLPW title. It's going to be a 2 out of 3 falls matchup. And let me see if I can find what the falls are. They announced them today. Pull that up. Let's see. Here we go. Rule set for KOPW. So let's see.
I don't know. I voted on it, but I don't remember which one I voted for.
So 2 out of 3 falls.
I'm pretty sure I voted on Taichi's stip.
Okay, here we go. So the first fall will be a no rope sumo rules match. The second fall will have Kanemaru as the referee, and the third fall will be last man standing.
Yep, that's the one I voted for.
What do you mean? It's 2 out of 3.
Yeah, and I voted for that stipulation.
Oh, you voted for 2 out of 3. I thought you were saying you voted for the last man standing.
No, I voted for that was the whole proposed KOPW stipulation. as opposed to Okan wanted something else, and I voted for that.
So that's what will be happening in the main event there.
I think what Okan wanted was an unlimited amount of other individuals allowed to accompany you and no DQ.
Gotcha.
So like they could have brought out whoever the fuck they wanted to be part of the match, but I think only they could pin each other. Gotcha.
Well, I like the 2 out of 3 much better.
Yeah, that's why I voted for it.
So yeah, that'll be.
Plus, I like sumo.
So that's the main event on the 22nd, and then on the next night on the 23rd, you'll have Katsuya Murashima chasing his dream. Then you'll have Hartley Jackson versus Jeb Cobb. Then the Jet Setters versus the Ichiban Sweet Boys in a non-title match. So you'll have the Junior Tag League winners against the Junior Tag Champions there. Then followed up by Catch 2-2 versus the Bullet Club War Dogs, the other half of the four-way. Then Despi, Wato, and Kojima versus Doki, Taichi, and Taka. Then we'll have Tanahashi, Jado, Bolton, Honma, and Yano versus all the House of Torture. Then in the semi-main event, we'll have Bushi, Shingo, and Tsuji versus Finley, Gato, and Sonata. And then your main event will be Shota Umino and Tomohiro Ishii versus Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr.
That should be good. I wonder who's going to be standing tall with the snow falling over them. Are we going to see Stone Pitbull standing there with snow fall over him, or is it going to be TMDK?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. So far, Zach has the last momentum from this last show this weekend, Strong Style Evolve. So yeah, we'll see if Umino gets to stand in the snow, or it will be Zach. So yeah, that's coming up this weekend. And then one last thing we should probably talk about before we get out of here, Tokyo Sports Awards. Zack Sabre Jr. Winning the Tokyo Sports Wrestler of the Year.
Very surprising. I mean, in a certain sense, not so much, because he did have a fantastic year. Some of the best matches of the year. Defeated Bryan Danielson in a very, very meaningful match and feud there, plus winning the G1, plus winning the world title against Naito in Sumo Hall, multiple title defenses. And when you kind of consider the state of Japanese wrestling as a whole, it's not surprising that the top guy in New Japan with the most accomplishments would be the winner. But the fact of the matter remains that he is a white dude and a foreigner. And the only other time a foreigner has ever won the Tokyo Sports Awards was Bob Sapp in 2003. And he was a transcendent draw on the level of literally like no other foreigner that we've ever seen in pro wrestling / MMA / kickboxing / combat sports in general. So, I mean, it is crazy just kind of considering the fact that people like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Vader, like people like that never won this award in the history of the Tokyo Sports Awards. And then Kenny Omega, Jay White, Will Ospreay. I think the biggest snub is that Kenny Omega that 1 year where he was champion and he probably should have won, and I don't know. I think they gave it to Naito. I can't recall. But
I think it might have been either. I think it might have been Okada.
They went to Okada.
Yeah.
Which that's one where I'm like, damn. I mean, that's a little surprising, but it doesn't mean that Zach isn't deserving. Zach's definitely deserving, but it is surprising just given the history of the Tokyo Sports Awards that I didn't think that this was possible, really. Yeah,
I mean, they easily could have given it to Naito with 2 title reigns in the year. But yeah, they gave it to Zach, winning G1, winning his first title, getting ready to main event Tokyo Dome for the first time. So yeah, happy for Zach. But yeah, it is kind of crazy when you look back at the history of guys who haven't won it.
When you say all those things about Zach, it's like Kenny won the title, Kenny won the G1.
Yeah.
Kenny headlined the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
Like, what has Zach done that Kenny didn't do when he didn't, when they didn't give him the fucking Tokyo Sports Awards? Like, it's all the same shit.
Zach did all that without Okada being there. That's what he did. So Zack Sabre Jr. wins the MVP. Best match, Yota Tsuji versus Hiroki Goto for the New Japan Cup final.
I don't know if that's going to win our award, but that has to be the best crowd atmosphere for the entire year. And I think that people probably are sleeping on it a little bit, and it's probably deserving to be in that spot. And I'll be interested to see how it performs in our awards.
Yeah. Women's Grand Prize goes to Sari. Outstanding Performer, Yuma Anzai. Fighting Spirit Award goes to Kaito Kiyomiya. The Technique Award goes to Shinya Aoki. Best Tag Team, the Saito Brothers. And the Rookie of the Year, Bolton Oleg.
Yeah, it's a big one. So congrats. But yeah, and not New Japan dominated this year. Pretty varied. But the big boy went home with Zach. So
yeah, so that's the Tokyo Sports Awards there. Speaking of awards, I definitely hope we can get our ballot finalized this week, because I'd like to talk about that next week on the show, get the ballot out there. We got a few categories left to nail down, and the ballots will be sent out.
We can get it done this week. We can do it.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up here?
No. Just everyone that's listening, go and be on the lookout for FOH Draft. It is coming out. I know it's the tail end of the show, but anyone that's watching on camera, you can see me and Jeremy are both sporting our newly minted One Nation Radio shirts that were gifted to us at FOH. The guys decided to riff on us and produce their own One Nation Radio logo in the styling of the Keepin It Strong Style logo. So it says One Nation Radio, the ace of podcasts. They got the giant pyramid with the all-seeing eye in the middle of the fucking circle. And yeah, they got us. Got to figure out something this mad disrespectful, but I actually like the shirt. Shirt's kind of hard.
Yeah, it feels great too.
Yeah, it's a good quality, so that's great. But yeah, FOH was wild this year, bro. Like really, I don't know. It is wild. So you guys are definitely going to want to, listen to that when you get a chance and the audio drops. So we're looking forward to you being able to partake in that as well. And other big stuff coming down the pipeline.
Yep. So that's going to be it for this week. If you want to watch our show live with sort of out ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. You can get a donation by visiting socialbucks.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at SoSuplex, at Jeremy L. Donovan. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/SoSuplex, and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group on Reddit. I'm the Pro Black Guy, y'all Keeping Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at SoSuplex. You can join our SoSuplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at SoSuplex.com, and check all the shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imp's WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Sling's Tunnel Talk with Ali and Aaliyah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
It's your bond.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.